On a city street, a young man in a school uniform stands before a colossal, horned monster roaring over its bloodied victim. Unfazed, the student worries about being late for school. He attempts to bargain with the beast, which he calls Mars, offering to buy it tea if it will just let him go. The scene shifts to Cyan High School, where a bald teacher lectures a classroom of students, diligently writing a formula on the chalkboard. Among the students is the same young man from the street, Yanagi Hiato, a first year, who is sound asleep at his desk. He is jolted awake when someone yanks him up by the back of his blazer. He looks up to see his teacher glaring down at him. Still groggy, Hiato greets him as Surasaki and asks if he's at school, confused because he thought he was at a pet shop. The teacher's face contorts with rage at the use of the nickname, and he bellows for Hiato to get out into the hall. As he leaves the classroom, his classmates murmur amongst themselves. One tells him he should just go home, while another remarks that this is why the zeros are such a pain. A nearby student recognizes that calling the teacher by his nickname was a bad move. A blonde student with an undercut smirks, finding it laughable to be in the same class as ability users. Hiato walks by, agreeing casually. 100 years prior, people with supernatural powers, known as ability users, began to appear. At the same time, so did aberrant monsters, which could only be killed by these empowered individuals. In response to this threat, the government established organizations like the Special Countermeasures Unit to tirelessly hunt down and exterminate the monsters. The school bell chimes, echoing across the grounds of Cyan High. As Hiato walks down the empty hall, he's stopped by the blonde student and his two friends. The blonde one calls him a loser and orders him to go get them some drinks, with his companions specifying a soda and a cola. The bully holds out his hand, which ignites with crackling energy. He states that his score is 5,058 and declares that a powerless zero, like Hiato, should just accept his place as a slave. He then menacingly asks if Hiato would dare refuse. In response to the fiery threat, Yanagi Hiato calmly points a finger, warning that using powers that way is against the rules and that he will inform a teacher. His defiance only enrages the bully, who intensifies the flames in his hand and snarls that he will indeed blast him. The confrontation de-escalates, and Hiato is left to fetch drinks. He reflects on the world hierarchy, where an individual's worth is determined by a numerical ability score. The bully score of 5,058 is high for their school, while members of the elite Special Countermeasures Unit possess scores in the tens of thousands. In this world of empowered individuals, Hayato's own score is a disheartening 0, rendering him useless and unwanted in his own eyes. Carrying the drinks, he hears the bully's dismissive voice from the rooftop, telling him to just leave them on the desk. It is a stark reminder that a powerless person with a score of 0 is treated with nothing but contempt. Later that day, Hiato arrives at his house, announcing his return. Inside, he is greeted by his sister, Yanagi Ao, who welcomes him home while relaxing on the couch and eating from a cup. He walks past her, noticing her snack and commenting that it looks delicious. Ao agrees, noting that they are a new brand, and offers him one. He grabs a drink from the refrigerator as his sister asks how high school is going. He takes a sip before replying that it's going okay, and turns the question back to her, asking about her day. She replies that it was the usual, getting chewed out by the popular kids and being sent on errands. He dismisses it with a smile, claiming he's living the perfect high school life. Ao, however, sees through the facade, exclaiming that his description is not perfect at all. He tries to brush it off, insisting his everyday life is nothing to complain about. His smile falters for a moment as his sister's voice cuts through his pretense. From the doorway, she looks at him with concern, asking if it isn't time he stopped hiding. She insists that she is being serious, but her brother, Hiato, casually dismisses her concern. He claims he's fine as long as he has his fluffy animal friends to cheer him up, gesturing towards his room to watch some videos. His nonchalance only deepens her worry. She begins to say that seeing him act this way is difficult for her, her voice trailing off. He stops and looks back, softly speaking her name, Ao. He turns his back to her and offers a hypothetical explanation she should give to others. He suggests she tell them the truth, that his 0 score is merely a display error, a system glitch caused by an ability so powerful it can't be measured. He continues to describe this fictional power, calling it transcended, an ability that would allow him to sublimate himself into any other existence, provided certain conditions were met. Facing her again, he explains the severe consequences if such a power were real. In their world, where a score is everything, the revelation that a 0 held absolute power would cause chaos, and as his sister, she would be dragged into the turmoil. That, he concludes, is why he is better off as a powerless 0. Listening with a downcast gaze, Ao quietly insists that she would be fine regardless of the circumstances. A gentle but determined smile forms on his face. He declares that in a world as chaotic as theirs, the most important thing to him is the peace of his family. He softens his tone, telling her not to be so serious. Ao relents, agreeing that she understands, but she still asks him not to push himself too hard. To change the subject entirely, he excitedly shows her his phone, displaying a picture of a fluffy dog. He proclaims that he has something to live for, so he's fine, before announcing he has a date with the dog, Sally, at the shopping mall tomorrow. Ao recognizes the dog is from the local pet shop. After his bedroom door clicks shut, Ao is left alone. A look of eager anticipation crosses her face as she wonders aloud what we should talk about this time. her excitement palpable. She concludes that as long as her brother is happy, that's all that matters. Turning her thoughts to someone named Sally, she asks them to please take care of him. In the background, a television announces breaking news. Meanwhile, her brother, Hiato, stands in a crowd outside a shopping mall. An official announcement declares that a D-rank monster has appeared nearby, making the mall part of an evacuation zone where entry is now prohibited. He reacts with disbelief and frustration, lamenting that this is cruel since he had been looking forward to this day for a week. Nearby, a member of the Special Countermeasures Unit reports to his colleague that the evacuation of everyone inside the mall is complete. The word everyone catches Hiyato's attention, and he repeats it with a questioning tone. His concern shifts, and he urgently asks the officer if the animals in the pet shop were evacuated. The official admits he has no confirmation on their status. Suddenly, a loud crash erupts from within the mall, startling them both. The sound sends a wave of panic through the crowd. One person cries out, questioning if a battle is happening so close to them, but another onlooker clarifies that the explosion felt as if it originated from inside the building. Hearing that the explosion came from inside, Hayato's expression becomes serious. He closes his eyes, resolving to take a look himself. He extends his senses into the building, and his perception is met with the image of a massive, glowing eye amidst the internal wreckage. He realizes with a start that there is another monster inside, and its aura is on a completely different level than the one outside. His focus sharpens further, revealing a shocking sight. There is someone near the monster. A child. Back in the real world, the officer is still trying to understand the situation, but Hiato is now aware of a far greater danger. Without a word to the confused officials, he slips under the caution tape cordoning off the area. He moves toward the danger. Inside the ruined mall, amidst the smoke and debris, the small child stands alone, dwarfed by the enormous clawed foot of the hidden monster. She stands frozen, staring up at the colossal beast that has cornered her. It's a monster, a realization that escapes her lips in a terrified whisper as the creature lets out a deafening roar, its maw filled with sharp teeth. The creature's roar seems to shake the very air, and in its wake, several large, cylindrical shells detach from its back, clattering onto the debris-strewn floor. Before the shells can settle, they detonate in a series of violent explosions. Just as the blasts erupt towards the terrified child, a figure lunges forward, scooping her out of harm's way in the nick of time. He kneels, gently setting the girl down and asking if she's hurt. Relieved, he urges her to join the others who have already evacuated. After she thanks him and runs to safety, he turns his full attention to the beast. Now it's just the two of them. He identifies his foe, Ravana, a B-rank, city-destroying level monster, known for controlling the orbs that float around its body. He calmly addresses the roaring creature, a slight smile on his face. He explains that he was supposed to be spending time with Sally until the store closed, describing her as a precious friend who listens to him without judgment. With a hardened expression, he declares that Ravana has dared to interrupt his moment of peace and issues a simple command: prepare yourself. As he speaks, a powerful aura erupts around him. Behind him, the spectral form of a massive, horned warrior clad in armor materializes. Hiato invokes its name, Mars. The ethereal warrior, Mars, mirrors Hiyato's intent, unleashing a devastating blow. Its massive fist connects with Ravana's jaw, the impact sending the city-destroying monster reeling backwards. The force of the unseen strike leaves Ravana stunned, its eyes wide with disbelief as dust and debris cloud the air. He stands over his opponent, hands still raised from directing the attack. He notes to himself that the Special Countermeasures Unit will arrive soon, meaning he must end this fight quickly. He begins to explain what Mars is. As he clenches his fist, he clarifies the nature of his power. Mars, he reveals, is one of the gods he is able to become, a transformation that drastically enhances his physical abilities and sharpens all 5 of his senses. He reflects on his ability, a power that allows him to sublimate into various existences he calls transcenders. Among these are even gods, granting him the authority to wield their immense power. With this divine authority, he unleashes a devastating attack, star-piercing. The blow connects with the Ravana monster's jaw as his fist, glowing with energy, prepares to unleash its full force. A massive hole is torn straight through the creature's torso. It collapses defeated amidst the rubble. Standing before the fallen beast, he looks back at the destruction, wondering if perhaps he overdid it. He decides it's time to leave, noting the increasing noise nearby. But as he turns, the sound of footsteps stops him short. A group of 4 young women in uniform appears. One of them points him out, surprised to see anyone there, as she believed the evacuation of the mall was complete. They stare in disbelief at the scene. The B-rank monster was taken down in a single blow. The dragon crest on their chests identifies them as the monster-slaying specialists, the Special Countermeasures Unit. One of the unit members asks him directly if he is just a civilian who was left behind, while another speculates if he was the one who defeated the monster. He begins to stammer a response, caught off guard. Before he can explain, the girl with animal-like ears draws her sword, its tip inches from his face, and declares that they are taking him into custody. Amidst the wreckage, Yanagi Hiato stands before the massive, defeated monster, a creature identified as B-rank, felled in a single blow. He turns to see 3 figures from the Special Countermeasures Unit observing him. Startled, He raises his hands and asks if they are just civilians who were left behind, or if they were the ones who defeated the beast. In response, one of the figures, a young woman with twin swords, leaps forward with a determined grin. Crossing her blades, she declares that they are taking him into custody. As she charges, her squad mates discuss the situation. The one with a high ponytail dismisses Hiato as just a civilian who got left behind. The long-haired member, more cautious, states that she will provide backup. He tries to protest, calling for them to wait and insisting they will understand if they just look at something. But the swordswoman ignores his plea, telling her companions to stay back and watch as she handles it herself. In a flash, she closes the distance between them. She appears behind him in an instant, pressing a blade to his neck. She orders him to stay put, noting no suspicious movements. Hiato is shocked by her speed, wondering if it was teleportation. He clarifies that he was just trying to show them the ability score on his phone. His explanation gives her pause. She whirls around, surprised, asking if he is an unawakened, and exclaiming that he is like a protected species. Her ponytailed squad mate steps forward with a scanner, suggesting they use their more accurate device to measure him. The long-haired woman approaches, calmly telling her sword-wielding teammate, Suzuna, that she was a little quick on the draw and lost her composure. The other agrees, smugly stating that he was just a straggler, exactly as she had predicted. The swordswoman turns back to Hiato with a wink and offers a casual apology. He accepts it, saying it's fine since one can't really tell a person's nature just by looking at them. Her demeanor now friendly. She formally introduces herself as Hattorii Suzuna of the Special Countermeasures Unit. Following her lead, her companions introduce themselves as well. The long-haired woman is Kirasaka Ryoko, and the one with the ponytail is Serenji Reika. One of the Special Countermeasures Unit members, Hattorii Suzuna, remarks to Hiato that he is taking the situation remarkably well. She notes that most people would be a mess after such an encounter, complimenting his nerves of steel. She suddenly grabs his hand, startling him. In the background, her dark-haired colleague, Kirasaka Ryoko, watches the interaction with a silent, neutral expression. Holding his hand gently, she reassures him that it is perfectly fine if his score is 0. With a bright smile, she expresses her certainty that his powers will awaken someday. Releasing him, she explains that her squad needs to investigate the scene and may require his testimony. She then formally asks for his name. Hiato, looking slightly flustered, manages a quiet word of thanks. He states his name is Yanagi Hiato. Suzuna beams, acknowledging it with a cheerful "got it, thank you," deciding it is time to depart. He tells the group he will be on his way and turns to leave. As he jogs away, Suzuna waves goodbye, calling out for him to be careful of the scattered rubble. Walking alone through the devastated street, he reflects on the close call. He knows the last thing he needs is to get tangled up in the business of the Special Countermeasures Unit. He continues on, considering himself lucky that they let him walk away simply because his score is 0. The thought frustrates him, and he clenches a fist, thinking how messed up this score-obsessed society truly is. As his gaze sweeps over the ruins of a building, a final, unrelated thought crosses his mind. That girl, Hattorii, was actually kind of cute. The scene shifts back to the familiar grounds of his school. While Hiato stands alone, his classmates, the blonde bully and his friends, are nearby, caught in a trivial argument over the difference between soda and cider. He calmly brushed off the confrontation, telling the blonde student it was just a joke and that he would go buy another drink. His classmates, however, were not so easily placated. One sneered about how a 0 like him would never get a girlfriend, while the blonde leader chastised him for sweating the small stuff, a trait he claimed was unpopular with girls. The leader's expression remained tense, despite Hiyato's attempt to de-escalate. As the group of bullies walked away, they muttered amongst themselves. One observed that Hiato, that piece of trash, had been getting a little bold lately. The others agreed, concluding that it was time someone put him back in his place. The decision was made. They would demolish him. The idea echoed in the blonde student's mind, a faint, cruel smile playing on his lips as he considered the prospect. Demolish him. He then pulled out his phone, informing his crony that he was delegating the task this time. When asked to whom, he explained he had found a crew that doesn't understand the meaning of mercy, suggesting an abandoned warehouse as the perfect location for their plan. The conversation continued, with one of the cronies mentioning that Hiato has a little sister. He'd heard she was brilliant and cute, the complete opposite of her brother. The blonde leader mused that the only remaining problem was figuring out how to make Hiato show up to their trap. Just then, Hiato returned, holding out a canned drink. He announced that he had brought their drink, catching the bullies by surprise. The leader turned, a sinister grin spreading across his face. His unexpected response was a simple, cheerful thanks. The friendly demeanor from the entire group was unsettling. Hiato couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong. The feeling lingered as he walked home alone. Glancing at the darkening sky, he noted that it looked like it was about to rain and decided he should hurry. His thoughts were interrupted by a buzz from his phone. A notification appeared on the screen, a class group call. He wondered if it was some kind of announcement. Upon checking the message, he saw it was from party boy number 1, whose profile identified him as Tanaka Ryo, the blonde bully. The message was a summons, telling him to come to a warehouse, and was accompanied by an image. Hiato stared at his phone, confused by the strange request. He looks up from the threatening message, startled to see his sister, Ao, standing right in front of him. As his phone begins to ring, he answers it with frantic urgency, demanding to know if she is all right and where she is. She answers, confused by his tone, confirming that she is at home and asking if something has happened. Hearing her voice, he feels a wave of relief, telling her that as long as she's okay, nothing else matters. Her cheerful voice continues over the phone, reminding him that she made his favorite meal for dinner and urging him to hurry home. He tells her he's looking forward to it before hanging up. The warmth in his voice vanishes, replaced by cold resolve. He now understands the bully's message perfectly. If he doesn't go to the warehouse, they will go after his sister. With a determined stride, he walks forward. A single thought echoes in his mind. They were the ones who crossed the line first. His expression hardens into a mask of fury. He makes a silent vow that he will not let them get away with this. Meanwhile, at the designated warehouse, a blond man with glasses laughs boisterously. He declares that getting paid 300,000 yen just to rough up a single kid is easy money. Inside, his group of hired thugs discusses the job. One notes that their client, the son of the police commissioner, pays well. Another mentions hearing that their target is an unawakened, making the prospect of beating him senseless seem pathetic. A third thug with long hair dismisses the boy, stating he's far more interested in the sister. The long-haired thug continues his vile fantasy about harming AO, startling his companions. Their conversation is cut short by a deafening crash as a massive, blade-like appendage smashes through the concrete wall, sending cracks spiderwebbing towards them. They stare, frozen in shock. A monstrous figure emerges from the dust and rubble. Its head is smooth and horned, with glowing white eyes, and its arms are long, terrifying blades. The thugs can only stammer in terror, one identifying it as a monster, another pointing out its deadly arms, the reality of their situation dawning on them. It moved with blinding speed, its bladed arms a blur of motion. The hired thugs could only cry out in agony as they were cut down in an instant, their bodies torn apart by the relentless assault. In the aftermath, the creature stood motionless amidst the carnage. The warehouse fell silent, save for the dripping of blood from its blade-like limbs onto the mangled remains of its victims. This was not merely a monster. It was a being with the power to destroy an entire region, perhaps even multiple states. In that blood-soaked warehouse, a new catastrophe had just taken its first breath. Meanwhile, an alert blared across the city. An A-rank monster had appeared. Its name was Ritter. It was also known by a more terrifying title, the demon who slaughtered 500,000 humans. The city's warning sirens began to wail as Hiato Yanagi walked down the street, his attention fixed on his phone. An alert had just come through announcing a monster's appearance. He read the details, his expression calm. It was an A rank, and its location was alarmingly close to where he was. He let out a small sigh, continuing on his way with a casual thought, hoping he wouldn't cross paths with the creature. Under a steady downpour, Yanagi Hiato walks alone through the deserted, rain-slicked streets of the city. He reflects on the recent surge in monster activity. An A rank had appeared, and on top of that, a B rank Ravana. He continues his thought, troubled that high-ranking monsters are showing up back-to-back. The established system classifies them from F to SSS rank. This classification system defines the scale of the threat. While most combat-type ability users can defeat an F rank, an SSS rank possesses enough power to trigger a global crisis. Suddenly, his senses flare. He stops dead in his tracks, his eyes widening in alarm. He follows the sensation, a peculiar smell that grows stronger as he walks. It leads him toward a warehouse, and a sense of disbelief washes over him as the scent intensifies. Arriving at the source, he is met with a horrific sight. Piled before him are countless bodies, and a heavy, metallic smell of blood fills the air. His eyes reflect the carnage. The scene is simply awful. Without warning, a figure erupts from the pile of bodies, lunging at him. He throws himself aside, just in time, the ground where he stood now splattered with blood. He realizes with a cold dread that if he had reacted a second later, he would be dead. He recognizes the creature standing before him. It's a Ritter. He recalls the historical data. The first confirmed sighting was 70 years ago in London. It took a massive force of ability users to finally defeat it, but not before it caused 498,547 casualties. He stood before the creature, his mind racing. It was the appearance of monsters like the Minotaur and Ravana that had forced humanity to pour its resources into training ability users. Now, he faced this new threat, lamenting his recent string of terrible luck. The Ritter loomed over him, its voice echoing with a chilling promise. After it was finished with him, it would proceed with a purification. His thoughts flashed back to the battle that had just concluded. He had faced a Minotaur, one known as Mars, in a furious exchange of blows. Throughout the fight, a single thought had kept him going. His sister Ao's home cooking was waiting for him. That motivation fueled his resolve to end things quickly, and he had launched himself forward to deliver a decisive blow. Meanwhile, as rain began to fall over the city, a special Countermeasures Unit squad descended upon a nearby rooftop. One of them, Hattorii Suzuna, began scanning the area with binoculars while Kurisaka Ryoko pointed towards the source of the disturbance. Kurisaka took the binoculars, her expression hardening as she focused on the scene. She was stunned to see the boy standing there, seemingly calm before the monstrous creature. He examined a small cut on his hand, prompting her to wonder what could have possibly happened to him. Back on the ground, his tense standoff with the Ritter was abruptly interrupted as a massive object fell from above, crashing into the ground between them. The impact sent a shockwave through the rubble-strewn street. He stared, breathless and confused, questioning if what he had just seen was merely a rock. His eyes darted to the side, where the defeated bodies of the Ravana and Minotaur lay. The truth struck him. The rock was the Ravana's corpse, tossed aside effortlessly by the Ritter. He realized with a chill that this was no ordinary ability user. It was a monster for which he had no data at all. He deduces the creature's ability must be exchanged, realizing it had swapped its position with a nearby rock to appear beside him instantly. Closing his eyes to concentrate, he listens for the sound, pinpoints the new location, and shouts, "There!" as he smashes his fist into the displaced stone. His punch shatters the rock, but the Ritter is already gone. It had performed another exchange, materializing behind him. Before he can turn, its bladed arm pierces straight through his shoulder. Staggering from the wound, he stands before his foe, now surrounded by an array of glowing crystalline stones. He breathes out, admitting to himself that he underestimated his opponent, acknowledging its skill. He finishes the thought with grim certainty, concluding that because of this miscalculation, he is done for. Just then, a massive, powerful aura erupts behind him as a large silhouette begins to form. His expression hardens with resolve as he declares he won't hold back any longer. He calls for his power to awaken through phase ascension, and a dark, egg-like object on the ground cracks and shatters. From within the brilliant light, a pair of fierce eyes stare forward as a name is invoked. Mars. The being fully materializes, a valiant warrior with long, flowing hair, clad in armor and brandishing a large shield and spear, radiating an immense pressure. This warrior is Mars, also known by the alias Gladius. In the heat of battle, he is an unparalleled fighter, displaying a ferocity that is the very embodiment of madness. Across the cratered ground, the Ritter stands poised, observing its powerful new adversary. At that moment, another student appears on the battlefield. With a look of utter contempt, the blonde-haired young man dismisses the monster as nothing and gestures dismissively, challenging it to bring it on. On the fractured battlefield, the blonde student stands his ground against a towering, slender monster. In the distance, the warrior known as Gladius watches the confrontation unfold. He looks upon the creature with disdain, declaring it to be nothing. With a confident gesture, he challenges it to bring its attack. In response, the monster lets out a guttural roar. It lunges forward, swinging a massive fist wreathed in dark energy down upon the student. The student meets the blow head-on, his own fist colliding with the monster's in a cataclysmic explosion of force that shatters their surroundings. He stands amidst the aftermath, the monster's entire upper body obliterated. With a clenched fist, he remarks casually that once he cuts loose, he can't exactly hold back. His momentary victory is cut short by a startling sight. The monster's severed lower half begins to bubble and churn, rapidly reforming its destroyed torso. He watches as a new arm sprouts and solidifies, dripping with fluid. The student identifies the creature's ability, regeneration. Now fully restored, the monster grins with a horrifyingly wide mouth, its eyes glowing with malice. Without hesitation, it lunges forward to attack once more. Understanding the challenge, he clenches his fist again, power swirling around it. He realizes that if simple destruction isn't enough, he must take a different approach. He drives his fist forward again, striking the monster's chest with even greater force. He declares that if it can regenerate, then he will just have to erase every last speck of its existence. He unleashes his ultimate technique, the Fist of Annihilation. A massive wave of destructive energy erupts from his strike, engulfing everything before him in a blinding white light. As the energy dissipates, Yanagi Hiato watches impassively. The blonde student stands confidently, the spectral afterimage of his powerful attack fading away behind him. His neutral expression shifts to one of slight annoyance. He mutters under his breath, finding the entire spectacle to be a nuisance. Deciding he can't afford to waste any more time, he turns and breaks into a run. He has to get to the warehouse, and quickly. He sprints toward a large, nondescript building, a question forming in his mind. He wonders if that party boy is still around. Upon entering, he is met with a scene of utter carnage. Bodies are strewn across the floor. He grimly observes the slaughter, noting that the creature known as Ritter must have made it this far. He scans the gruesome scene, a flicker of disappointment on his face. The party boy isn't here. It seems he was too late after all. His thoughts are interrupted by his phone buzzing. It's a message from AO, demanding to know where he is and complaining that the dinner she made is getting cold. The realization that she cooked sends a jolt of panic through him. Spurred into action, he turns to leave, declaring that he has to hurry home. But as he moves, a voice from the shadows calls out a familiar greeting, "Long time no see." He freezes, startled. He turns back, his eyes wide with disbelief and recognition. He stares at the unseen figure, only able to stammer out a single, shocked word. "You're..." The figure who had called out to him was not one, but three, a trio of young women in matching uniforms, identified as the Special Countermeasures Unit. He watched as one of them, a girl with a large ribbon in her hair, stepped forward and asked if he remembered her. Stuttering slightly, he confirmed that he recognized her as Ms. Hattorii. Upon hearing this, her face lit up with a radiant smile. She exclaimed that his recognition made her incredibly happy. Her cheerful demeanor caught him off guard. As he stood before the three of them, a thought flashed through his mind, She was incredibly cute. He then hesitantly asked why they were all there. He quickly ventured a guess, asking if they were perhaps looking for the A-rank monster, noting that it didn't seem to be around anymore. His assumption was immediately corrected. Hattorii smiled brightly and clarified that they hadn't come for the monster. They had come looking for him. The statement left him visibly surprised. She continued with excitement, describing how she had never seen an ability that turned someone's hair pure white like his hat. She gushed that he had totally blown the Ritter to pieces and that it was seriously amazing, leaving him speechless and sweating. Flustered, he tried to deflect, asking what she was talking about. He then attempted to leave, claiming his sister was waiting for him and that they should excuse him. His retreat was halted when the woman with long, dark hair stepped forward. She revealed that she had taken the liberty of recording his fight with the Ritter, stopping him cold. She explained that their unit maintains a massive database for missions. After running facial analysis on the footage, the results were conclusive, identifying him as Yanagi Hiato, a first year at Scion High School. The revelation left him stunned into silence. The device in the officer's hand beeped, displaying a result of 0. The woman holding it announced that, just as she suspected, he was an unawakened with a score of 0. The officer with dark hair, Kurosaka Ryoko, regarded him thoughtfully, musing that it wasn't entirely unheard of for someone with a 0 to have an ability. Confused, Hiato asked what exactly they were. Before she could elaborate, Hattorii Suzuna stepped between her companions, urging them to stop putting him on the spot. Her plea was ignored by Serenji Reika, who surged forward, getting right in Hayato's face. She declared passionately that it would be a crime to let an ability like his go to waste. She leaned in closer, her expression shifting to a confident smile as she explained that even within their elite ranks, only a handful of operatives could defeat an A-rank monster alone. Her words hung in the air as she looked at him intently, asking directly if he, Hiato, would lend them his strength. He stared back, stunned, as she clarified with an enthusiastic shout. They needed him in the Special Countermeasures Unit. His stunned silence prompted Hattorii Suzuna to intervene once more. As Hiato stammered in disbelief, she gently told him he didn't have to provide an answer right away. She then stepped forward, handing him a small piece of paper. With a bright smile, she explained it was her personal number and email, telling him to let her know his decision and that she would be waiting for a yes. With their offer made, the 3 unit members turned and departed, leaving Hiato standing alone, watching them go. He stood alone in the vast, empty warehouse, the echoes of the recent encounter fading away. His gaze was fixed on the small piece of paper left in his hand. He stared at the paper, a single question echoing in his mind. Was this really happening? For the first time in his entire life, something like this had occurred. The true weight of the moment finally dawned on him, sending a blush across his face. It wasn't just an invitation to a special unit. A girl had actually given him her number. A public announcement blares from a loudspeaker, confirming the annihilation of an A-rank monster and officially lifting the evacuation order. With the immediate danger past, Yanagi Hiato walks alone down a quiet residential street, heading home. He glances down at his phone, having successfully saved Hattorii Suzuna's contact details. Her full name, mobile number, and email address are now stored, and he confirms to himself that everything is set. Arriving at the gate bearing his family name, Yanagi, he clutches his chest with a giddy smile. He revels in the pure bliss of this moment, realizing it's the first time he has ever saved the contact information of a girl outside his own family. His cheerful mood shatters in an instant. He stops dead in his tracks, a sense of alarm washing over him as he notices something amiss at his house. He opens the front door and steps inside, announcing his return. With a hint of concern, he calls out, asking if his mother and the others are back home yet. To his complete astonishment, he finds his sister, Ao, sitting at the dining table with none other than Hattorii Suzuna. Suzuna cheerfully welcomes him back and apologizes for the intrusion, as if her presence were the most natural thing in the world. He stammers her name, utterly bewildered. Unfazed, Suzuna holds up a fork with a piece of food, gives him a playful wink, and declares that she came to hear his answer. Still reeling, Hiato points out that they had just seen each other. Suzuna simply explains that she was too excited to just sit still and wait. While Suzuna continues eating, fitting in perfectly, Ao leans over to her brother. She asks where he met such a cute girl, acknowledging it must be a long story and questioning why they're already eating dinner together. Suzuna interrupts, inviting Hiato to eat with them so they could talk. He asks if there is any food left for him, and his sister Ao confirms that there is. He agreed as his sister, Ao, told him to go get changed while she heated up dinner. As he started up the stairs, still processing the surprise, Suzuna cheerfully called out from the dinner table that she would be waiting for him. He continued on his way, finding it hard to believe she had come all the way to his house. He concluded she was a rather wild person. Reaching his room, he reflected that at least Ao seemed to be having fun, and for that, he should be grateful. He then opened the door. The door clicked shut, and the night passed into a new day. He awoke with a start, realizing with a glance at the clock that it was already past noon. He must have passed out right after changing clothes. Walking through the now empty house, he discovered a note left for him on the table, addressed to my dear brother. He began to read the note from his sister. She wrote that he must have been exhausted and that she had heard everything from Suzuna after he went to bed, including the story about the monster, Ritter. As he splashed water on his face, he processed the rest of the note's contents. Ao also knew about his power and about Suzuna's invitation for him to join the Special Countermeasures Unit. The note concluded by saying she had already called his school to report his absence, instructing him to just stay home and rest until he was healed. He left the bathroom, ready to follow her advice. He processed the new reality. His sister knew about the invitation. He considered the organization behind it. The Special Countermeasures Unit, a government-sanctioned task force. Joining them was a high-stakes gamble. The survival rate for their missions was only around 70%. In exchange for that immense danger, however, the pay was substantial, enough to provide a comfortable life for one's family. Beyond the money, its members were treated as heroes, admired, envied, and showered with praise. They were seen as a beacon of hope for the people, celebrated by cheering crowds. He weighed the options. Becoming a member had its perks, but it also came with a heavy price. His primary concern surfaced. If he were to join, would it bring trouble to his sister? Ao, an image of her bright, carefree smile, filled his mind. He wondered if choosing this path would be the very thing that wiped that smile from her face. His contemplation was shattered by the sound of his doorbell. He opened the door, his expression shifting to one of surprise. Standing there was Suzuna Hattorii, greeting him cheerfully. He was taken aback, not only by her presence but by her appearance. She gave off a completely different vibe in casual clothes. Outside, she began by apologizing for the events of the previous day. He quickly countered, insisting that he was the one who should be sorry for having fallen asleep. He brushed the apology aside, his confusion evident as he touched the side of his head. He asked her directly what brought her to his home. In response, she smiled and made a surprising offer, asking if he wanted to go to Ao's middle school with her. The unexpected request left him speechless. He walks stiffly beside Suzuna, his heart pounding. It's the first time he's ever walked side by side with a girl who wasn't his sister, Ao. He glances over at her, a sudden thought striking him. From an outsider's perspective, they might look like a couple. She turns to him, mentioning how much fun she had talking with Ao the day before. He's taken aback for a moment. Then a small, satisfied smile crosses his face as he thinks that good things really do happen if you live long enough. She adds with a bright smile that Ao is fully supporting his decision to join the Special Countermeasures Unit. He confirms this, recalling that his sister did say she wished he would stop hiding his powers. She glances back at him, her expression turning serious. She asks if the reason he's hiding them is related to a certain incident. He answers with 3 chilling words. The Witch of Perth. His words conjure a memory of a past catastrophe. A girl with an unawakened ability and a score of 0 appeared alongside a knight in jet black armor. Without warning, they annihilated the metropolis of Perth and its 2 million inhabitants. The people, terrified, branded the girl a witch. He explains the fallout from that tragedy. Ever since, anyone with an ability score of 0 has been deemed a threat. For his sister Ao's sake, he feels he cannot let anyone know he has powers. She stops walking and turns to face him directly, pointing out the obvious flaw in his plan. If he joins the unit, it's a guarantee the whole world will find out. He looks away, asking if she really thinks the world could praise someone like him. She looks at Hiato with a serious expression, admitting that she honestly doesn't know what could happen. He listens, a silent question hanging in the air. Her uncertainty then transforms into passionate encouragement. Clenching her fist, she declares that if people won't praise him, he just needs to become so incredible that they have no choice but to. She tells him with conviction that she knows he has it in him. Her words resonate with him. He realizes that such a straightforward way of thinking had never even crossed his mind. As this new perspective settles in, Suzuna walks beside him with a satisfied smile. Their conversation continues as they walk down a street that leads to the gates of Cyan Middle School, where other students are beginning to leave for the day. Noticing the flow of students, she gives a playful salute and remarks that school must be letting out. He looks around, noting that it's his first time visiting this particular school. His gaze falls upon a pair of girls, and he muses that one of them is likely among the most popular students there. His idle thought is interrupted when Suzuna suddenly pulls him behind a nearby wall. Startled, he asks why they're sneaking around, but she just shushes him, telling him to watch. She points out his sister, Ao, among the students. He peers out from their hiding spot, confused, and sees Ao walking out of the school gates completely alone. As he watches her solitary figure, his eyes widen with a sudden, jarring realization. The reason for his shock is his sister's expression. Her face is clouded with a deep, quiet sadness, revealing a profound loneliness he hadn't seen before. The sight leaves him stunned into silence. He can only whisper her name, his face a mask of disbelief and dawning horror at what he has witnessed. He stood frozen, a single bead of sweat tracing a path down his temple. The look on his sister's face was one he couldn't recognize, a deep, hollow sadness he had never once seen within the walls of their home. As he watched her from a distance, a chasm seemed to open between them. The question echoed in his mind, a desperate, silent plea, just when the world was happening to her. Yanagi Hiato watches his sister, Ao, from a distance, a look of concern on his face. He realizes with a jolt that he has never seen her wear such a somber, pained expression at home. He continues to observe her as she walks away, her posture betraying a deep unhappiness. He questions why she looks this way, believing she was supposed to be enjoying her time at school. Later, while walking with Serenji Reika, he tries to rationalize what he saw, telling himself that Ao must have just had a fight with a friend or was simply having a bad day. Far ahead, Ao continues her journey home, completely alone. His companion, however, shatters his hopeful assumption. Reika states plainly that it is like this for Ao every single day. The words strike Hiato with the force of a physical blow, his eyes widening in shock. He turns to her, bewildered, asking why this is happening and what became of Ao's friends. Reika's response is simple and direct. Ao walks home by herself every day. He refuses to believe it, insisting that his sister is far too outgoing to be alone. But Reika confirms the sad truth, explaining that Ao herself told her she has no friends to walk with. A dreadful possibility forms in his mind, and he asks if she is being bullied. His concern quickly turns to anger as he demands to know who is responsible for his sister's sadness. Reika then reveals that Ao admitted that school is hard for her. She looks him straight in the eye and delivers the final, devastating blow. The person making Ao so sad, she explains, is him. Hiato is stunned, barely able to process the accusation as he stammers. Me? Reika clarifies that Ao isn't being bullied in the traditional sense. Instead, because she has an unawakened older brother, she is treated like an outcast. Everyone at school keeps their distance, preventing her from getting close to anyone. The full weight of the truth crashes down on Hiato. He realizes with horror that his own deception, his pretense of being unawakened, was the direct cause of all his sister's suffering. He stood beside Sarenji Reika, watching his sister, Ao, walk toward their home, her posture slumped with dejection. Reika let out a heavy sigh, and he could only stare, a question forming on his lips. As she walked, Ao squeezed her eyes shut and pressed her hands to her head, a silent, frustrated gesture against the weight of her troubles. In the next moment, however, she dropped her hands and forced a bright, determined smile, steeling herself before she reached her front door. Reika explained that Ao was fully aware of his feelings and had resolved to always be cheerful at home, so he wouldn't worry. As if on cue, Ao's voice echoed from their doorway as she announced her arrival. The revelation struck him deeply. His expression hardened with resolve, and without another word, he broke into a full sprint toward his house. He burst into her room, calling her name with urgency. Ao turned from her desk, startled by his sudden and forceful entrance. He could only offer a quiet apology. Her surprise quickly shifted to worried anger as she demanded to know where he had been, reminding him that she'd left a note telling him to rest because of his injuries. He gently called her name, his tone serious. She looked up, questioning, and her expression grew tense as he began to speak honestly. But instead of confrontation, he simply turned and announced he would make dinner. Her tension immediately vanished, replaced by a beaming smile as she called him a lifesaver. While cooking, his mind wandered. He reflected that she had never shown any sign of her suffering, and he was left to wonder just how long she had been carrying that burden alone. He places the meal before his sister, feeling pathetic that he couldn't voice his feelings directly. Instead, he lets the ketchup bottle do the talking. On the surface of the omelet, a single word is written in ketchup: sorry. His sister stares at it, bewildered, asking what this is. Her confusion melts into a gentle smile. She takes a bite, then tells him not to worry about what happened earlier. Her only concern is that he rests properly for the next day. She exclaims how delicious the meal is. Hearing this, he turns away in the hallway, his expression grim and determined. He silently vows that he will not let her suffer any longer. He resolves to stop deceiving himself, driven by the desire to see her genuine smile once more. With this newfound determination, he makes a phone call. The call connects. Under the night sky, he asks to speak with someone named Hattorii for a moment. The next day at school, he is confronted by Tanaka Ryo and his associates. The blonde student looks him over and curtly asks what he wants. He meets Tanaka's gaze without flinching, reminding him of their previous encounter. I trust you haven't forgotten about the warehouse, he asks. Tanaka feigns ignorance, claiming he wasn't present and therefore wouldn't know. A moment later, a flicker of recognition crosses his face as he acknowledges that Hiato actually went. The implicit admission catches his ear. His eyes widen slightly, confirming his suspicions. He stood his ground as a spiky-haired blonde student admitted to sending thugs after him. The student added with a smirk that he'd heard they were defeated by a Ritter, calling Hiato lucky. The student then clapped a hand on his shoulder, casually promising to arrange another meeting. Hiyato's expression darkened as he warned him to be ready for it. As he began to walk away, he stated firmly that there would be no next time, catching the attention of the blonde student's cronies. He glanced back, his voice steady, explaining that this would be the last time they would ever see him. His declaration was met with scorn. The blonde student mockingly asked if he was dropping out, while one of his companions told him to get lost and never return. Hiato turned to face them fully, his resolve unshaken. The rival scoffed at the idea that an unawakened nobody could get into the Special Countermeasures Unit, but Hiato confirmed that was his exact intention. With a single word, he called forth his power, Mars. A torrent of energy erupted behind him as the immense, armored figure of Mars materialized. The shockwave of the summoning sent the three bullies hurtling through the air. They crashed hard onto the rooftop, tumbling helplessly from the overwhelming force. Pushing himself up, the blonde student stared in wide-eyed terror, stammering as the truth dawned on him. Hiato had an ability. Hiato stood calmly, the towering warrior Mars at his back. He explained that he had only tolerated their abuse for his sister's sake. As Mars clenched a gauntlet fist, the rival was paralyzed by the warrior's oppressive battle aura. unable to stop shaking. His summoned warrior, Mars, unleashes a torrent of energy that slams into the blonde student. The rival's face contorts in shock and pain as the ground around him shatters from the sheer force of the impact. He clenches his fist, acknowledging to himself that this was a mistake. He knows this display of power might cause others to fear him, or even hate him. However, a cheerful voice cuts through the tension. Hattorii Suzuna, pumping a fist in excitement, tells him not to worry. She insists that he just needs to be so amazing that people will have no choice but to admire him. Her words seem to find their mark. He stands his ground, declaring that he is done hiding. With the spectral form of Mars looming behind him, he makes a stunning declaration to his rival. He is an ability user with a score of 0. The blonde student, now bruised and exhausted, stares in disbelief. Hiato issues a final warning, telling him to never get involved with him or AO again. As he turns to leave, the rival collapses to the ground, muttering that there's no way he could be a 0. The defeated student trembles as a terrifying realization dawns on him. A power of that magnitude has to be well over 100,000. Sometime later, as Hiato walks away from the school building, a black car pulls up. Hattorii Suzuna leans out the window, waving and calling out to him. Now seated beside her in the vehicle, he apologizes for making her come all this way to get him. Suzuna cheerfully dismisses his concern, saying it's not a problem at all, though she does mention that it's a long way to the headquarters building. As they drove, Hattorii Suzuna turned to him with a curious smile. She asked how his farewell to his schoolmates had gone, wondering aloud if everyone had been crying. He confirmed that they seemed quite sad to see him leave, stating simply that they were, indeed, crying. As their car sped through the city, he added a final, grim detail. They had been crying so hard they had wet themselves. A black car pulls to a stop on a city street. Inside, Hattorii Suzuna turns to Yanagi Hiato with a smile, announcing that they have arrived. Stepping out of the vehicle, Hiato stares up in awe at an immense skyscraper, remarking that it must be over 100 meters tall. Suzuna confirms that this is the headquarters for the Special Countermeasures Unit Japan branch. She then points to a nearby apartment building, explaining that it will be his and his sister Ao's new home. He asks if Ao has already seen the apartment. Suzuna cheerfully replies that she has, recounting how excited his sister was when she saw the massive living room. As they walk through the building's modern lobby, he inquires about the size of their team. Suzuna explains that she had just gone to pick him up, and now, including him, there are 8 members in total. She continues, providing more context. Most teams average about 4 members, and some smaller countries only have 2. This means the Japanese branch possesses a significant force. Their walk leads them down a hallway on the 30th floor. Suzuna gestures to a door, identifying it as his locker room, and telling him to go get changed into the uniform waiting inside. He agrees, but before he can enter, she hands him a temporary ID card with his name, Yanagi Hiato, printed on it. She warns him not to lose it, as it's necessary for moving around the facility and unlocking doors, and says she will wait for him there. As he steps through the doorway, a voice calls out, "Suzunachi." Suzuna turns, her expression brightening as she waves enthusiastically at her approaching teammate. The teammate, Sarenji Reika, is now joined by the stern-faced Kurisaka Ryoko. Reika asks if the person who just went inside was him, and if Suzuna was giving him a tour of the facility. Suzuna simply confirms that she was. Reika lets out an exasperated sigh. Ryoko, however, stares intently after Hiato, her expression cold as she states that she still doesn't trust his mysterious power. As her colleague stands by, silently, Hattorii Suzuna offers a more welcoming tone, apologizing for the wait. She expresses confidence that they will all get along once they spend some time with their new teammate. At that moment, Yanagi Hiato emerges, now dressed in the official unit uniform. Sarenji Reika exclaims that it looks great on him, while Kurisaka Ryoko offers a more reserved compliment that it's not bad. Flustered, Hiato asks if it really looks okay before realizing he hasn't been properly introduced. He bows deeply, stating it's a pleasure to meet them both. With introductions made, Suzuna asks where they're taking him next. Sarenji announces their destination is the basement and enthusiastically invites the others to tag along, an offer Kurisaka quietly accepts. As the 4 of them walk down a sterile corridor toward the first basement level, Kurisaka asks what is located there. Suzuna explains that it's the training grounds, and that their leader is waiting for Hiato. They arrive at a large set of double doors. Suzuna pushes one open, calling out an apology for the delay and announcing that she has brought Hiato as requested. Inside, a man with spiky dark hair turns to face them. Suzuna introduces him as their leader, proudly adding that he is the strongest left-handed ability user in the world. The man introduces himself as Konga Takaru and extends a hand to Hiato, saying it is a pleasure to finally meet him. As he takes the offered hand, Hiato feels an immense pressure. He instantly understands that this isn't a simple handshake. Kongu is deliberately letting him feel his power. The sensation is immense, an overwhelming battle aura flowing directly from the leader in a clear and purposeful display of strength. Looking at the man's confident expression, Hiato recognizes this incredible power as the true strength of the one who leads the Special Countermeasures Unit. The leader then speaks, his grip still firm. He reveals that he has heard all about Hiato from Hattorii, specifically mentioning that the new recruit took down both a Ravana and a Ritter all by himself. He continues to press the young man, questioning how he managed such feats with a power level of 0. Hiato, sweating slightly, admits he can't explain it himself, wondering what it could be. Watching from a distance, Kurisaka Ryoko remarks to her teammates that while she doesn't doubt Hattorii and the others, she is the type of person who must see things with her own eyes. Her leader seems to share the sentiment. Kongu releases Hiato and declares that he will be the judge of whether the newcomer is fit for the unit, demanding that Hiato show him his ability at this very moment. One of the onlookers murmurs that given the recent case involving the Witch of Perth, it's only natural for their leader to want to be certain of Hayato's capabilities. Hayato's expression is firm. He understands the reasoning, acknowledging that Kongu is a good leader for being so thorough, and agrees to the test. They move to a spacious training hall. Kongu stands opposite Hiato, explaining that the area is protected by a special barrier that won't break easily, encouraging the boy not to hold anything back. He clarifies that this isn't about winning or losing. With a confident snap of his fingers, he tells Hiato to just give him one shot, to hit him with everything he's got. The young man understands. With a determined look, he agrees and invokes the name of his power, Mars. In response, a colossal, fiery apparition of the Minotaur, Mars, manifests behind him. Kongu watches, intrigued by the strange aura. "All right, my turn," he says with a smile, invoking his own ability, Paladin. A shimmering wall of light materializes before him. As Hiato observes the barrier, the other unit members explain that Leader Kongu's ability allows him to manipulate up to 10 such barriers. Kongu announces that he will start with 4 to test the boy's strength. He smirked, questioning if Hiato was certain that 4 barriers would be sufficient. Hiato looked back, confused by the question. In response, Hiato unleashed his full power. The spectral form of Mars materialized behind him, its fist crashing forward with immense force. The sudden surge of energy caught the observers by surprise. Kurisaka noted the abrupt increase in his power, while Kongu exclaimed in shock, questioning the nature of the Crimson Battle aura now enveloping Hiato. He quickly determined that this was bad. He would need more barriers, 7, in fact. Kongu declared that he was looking forward to finding out just how far the rookie's attacks could go against the 5th strongest person in the world. As he spoke, Hiato lunged forward, unleashing an attack he called Piercing Star. The attack slammed into the light barriers, shattering them in a brilliant explosion of force. The other members of the unit could only watch, stunned by the display of power. When the blinding lights subsided, the floor was littered with the crystalline fragments of the destroyed barriers. Behind a field of debris, Kongu stood unharmed, protected by a final barrier. A web of cracks spread across its surface from the point of impact, and he quietly admitted to himself that it had been a close call. He traced the fracture with his fingers, putting the attack into perspective. Destroying 4 or 5 of his barriers required the power of an A-rank monster. Destroying 6 required an S-rank. Hiato had not only destroyed 6, but had also managed to put a crack in the 7th. Serenji shouted in amazement, remarking to her comrades what a hell of a rookie they had found. Kongu turned back towards Hiato, a small, impressed smile on his face. The 2 women continued to watch Hiato. Serenji commented that his power was even more amazing up close, while Kurisaka silently wondered if it was some form of physical reinforcement ability. Startled by the sudden display of power, Hiato stands frozen as Kongu approaches him with a wide grin. The squad leader claps a hand on his shoulder, announcing his decision to give the last spot on the team to Yanagi. The thunderous crash of the barriers shattering alerts the rest of the squad. A young man with dark hair, Gaju, demands to know the source of the commotion. He is met by Kongu's cheerful dismissal, who explains that it was nothing to worry about, just their new recruit getting a little carried away. Gaju looks down from the upper level, surprised to see not only his leader, but the entire group gather below. His eyes, along with those of Kurisaka and Serenji, fall upon Hiato. Gaju questions the new recruit designation, and Kurisaka notes that she doesn't recognize him. Ignoring their confusion for a moment, Kongu turns his attention to a more pressing matter. He informs them that the higher-ups are once again making inquiries about the cave incident. Before Gaju can fully process this, Kongu cuts him off, stating that it's fine because he has already made a decision. He tightens his grip on Hayato's shoulder, drawing the young man's attention. He looks directly at the new recruit and formally addresses him. "Yanagi Hiato, I hereby appoint you to the subjugation team for the Labyrinth and Cave. This will be your first mission." The announcement leaves Hiato stunned. With a firm hand on Yanagi Hayato's shoulder, Konga Takaru grins broadly. He officially appoints Yanagi to the subjugation team for the Labyrinth and Cave, declaring that this will be his very first mission. This immediate assignment prompts Gaju to question Kongu, asking if he is truly sending a rookie into the field right away. Kongu, gesturing towards the other members, confidently assures him that with Yanagi's power, he will be fine. Gaju remarks that a blast of that magnitude was a first for him since joining the unit. Kongu smirks, acknowledging that Gaju must have heard it as well. He then approaches Yanagi, introducing himself as Gaju Subaru. As Yanagi stammers an acknowledgement, Gaju smiles and says it is a pleasure to meet him. Yanagi is startled by a new voice reassuring him that it's perfectly alright if he happens to get hurt on his first mission. He turns to see 2 young women. The one with light-colored hair cheerfully introduces herself as Kurisaka Moka, promising to heal him perfectly. Beside her, the girl with long dark hair presents herself more formally as Kakuri Hana, adding that it is a pleasure to work with him. Kongu explains to a surprised Yanagi that they are both key members of the rear support. He clarifies their roles. Kurisaka is the heel-bearer, and Kukuri is the prophetess. Yanagi is taken aback that members so young are part of the unit. Catching his attention by calling his name, Kongu adds that both of the girls possess some very rare abilities. The entire team then assembles a formidable group of young men and women, and together they formally welcome him. His new comrade's words echo as he takes in a moment. He is now officially a member of the Special Countermeasures Unit. He and his new teammates gather inside a conference room for their mission briefing. Their leader, Konga Takaru, stands at the head of the table to explain the details. The objective, he announces, is to investigate the labyrinthine cave that has suddenly appeared. Sarenji Reika leans forward, commenting with a hint of sarcasm that one would expect a government-sent team to be competent. Hattorii Suzuna adds that a recon team was already dispatched, but all contact with them has been lost. She immediately asks if this means the team was wiped out. Kongo clarifies that it's not confirmed they're dead. They have only received reports that communication was severed. The loss of communication means they have no way of predicting the level of monsters waiting inside the cave. Yanagi listens, his expression serious as he processes the gravity of the situation. He understands that this mission is extremely dangerous, with a possibility of encountering A-rank or even SS-rank monsters. Konga declares that the mission will begin the next day. He then lists the members of the deployment team, himself, Hattorii, and Sarenji. He concludes the list by naming the final member, Yanagi. Goju Subaru explains that he was not selected because his ability is ill-suited for the narrow confines of the caves. Kurisaka Ryoko, he adds, will remain behind to take command in case of an emergency. Noticing Yanagi's concern, Sarenji offers a reassuring smile. She tells him this should be relatively safe, thanks to her teleportation ability. As the mission briefing continued, the unit leader, Konga Takaru, turned to Kukuri Hana. He asked her to deliver the results of her prophecy, as was their custom. After a moment of silence, she quietly affirmed that she would. Noticing her grave expression, Yanagi Hiato asked what was wrong. Kukuri began to explain that for this specific mission, unless there was some kind of drastic change, she delivered her prophecy with chilling certainty. Someone on the subjugation team would die. The grim prediction sent a wave of shock through the room, stunning every member of the team into silence. He voiced his disbelief, exclaiming that she must be kidding. But Sarenji Reika, seated beside him, calmly affirmed that Kukuri's prophecies were never wrong. She then smiled warmly, thanking Kukuri for the warning and promising they would take her words to heart. In response, Kukuri could only offer a quiet, concerned plea for them to be careful. He watched the others, perplexed by their calm demeanor. He wondered if they weren't afraid, or if they had simply grown accustomed to hearing prophecies of death. His bewilderment gave way to a dawning respect as he looked up. He realized this life-or-death reality was simply their everyday existence. His thoughts then drifted to his sister, Ao. An image of her worried face filled his mind as he lamented that his new path would likely do nothing but cause her anxiety. He listened as his leader, Konga Takaru, addressed the team. With the weight of the prophecy hanging over them, Konga stated that they had no idea what would happen on the mission and that he needed every one of them to be sharper than ever. He looked up, startled by the sudden shift in tone, only for Hattorii Suzuna, seated beside him, to offer a quiet reassurance that everything would be okay. She leaned in with a confident smile, reminding him that she was the one who scouted him in the first place. Because of that, she promised, she would protect him no matter what happened. He was taken aback by her words, asking if she intended to sacrifice herself for him. She quickly clarified that she simply meant she would protect him, nothing more. He turned away, thanking her for the sentiment, but firmly stating his own resolve. He was not going to die. His expression hardened with determination. He declared that if anything were to happen, he would be the one to protect everyone. The following day, the team's vehicle rumbled along a rugged, unpaved road cut through a dense forest. The ride was rough, the tires jolting hard against the uneven terrain. Inside, Yanagi was thrown about by the motion, groaning as he tried to find his balance. He found himself wedged tightly between Hattorii Suzuna and Sarenji Reika, who were both pressing against him with playful smiles. They cheerfully informed him that this was his newbie Haze. As their vehicle bounced along the rough terrain, Sarenji complained that the bumpy ground was making her sore. Hattorii, winking, cheerfully replied that she was fine, thanks to her own nice thigh cushion. Their chatter prompted Yanagi to turn to the driver, asking Kongu if he had anything to add to the conversation. The leader responded with a wry smile, remarking that with a flower in each hand, complaining would be asking for divine punishment. As the vehicle continued down the dirt path, a slightly flustered Yanagi conceded to himself that, in its own way, the situation was an acceptable kind of reward. Their journey concluded moments later as the vehicle came to an abrupt halt. Having disembarked, the 4 squad members stood before the gaping maw of a large cave, confirming that they had reached the entrance. Sarenji noted that the air felt gloomy and nasty. Yanagi, however, scanned their surroundings and reported that he couldn't sense the presence of any strong monsters nearby. With their initial assessment made, Kongu gave the order to proceed. He issued a stern reminder not to forget Kukuri's prophecy as they prepared to move. Heeding his command, the squad ventured into the oppressive darkness of the cave. Elsewhere, shrouded in mist, an unseen observer watched their progress, noting that the group had finally made their move. The unseen entity continued its monologue, its shadowy form coalescing as it considered its target, the Special Countermeasures Unit. It mused that within the entirety of Japan's elite unit, there was no one who possessed the same weakness as its intended prey. The thought hung in the oppressive darkness of the cave, a silent, confident declaration. As the squad stood at the entrance, oblivious, a multitude of malevolent eyes watched from the shadows. The entity issued its decree, commanding them to go forth and rot within the labyrinth it had personally designed. A squad of 4, Konga Takaru, Yanagi Hiato, Sarenji Reika, and Hattorii Suzuna, make their way through a wide, dimly lit cavern, its crystalline walls faintly glowing. As they venture deeper, Hattorii Suzuna expresses her dislike for the place, worrying about ghosts that can't be hit with physical attacks. Sarenji Reika agrees, adding that her teleportation ability is also ineffective against such foes. Hiato, listening to their concerns, turns his attention to Sarenji's shoulder bag and asks what's inside. He internally remarks on Suzuna's aggressive mindset, finding it unusual that her first thought about a ghost is how to attack. She explains that since her ability is for support, not offense, she brought along some weapons just in case. Hiato is impressed, realizing she is fully prepared to participate in the attack despite her role. Meanwhile, at the head of the group, Suzuna points out to Kongu that the cave is strangely bright, even though no light is coming in from the outside. He agrees that it is certainly strange. As they continue through some tall, grass-like flora, Sarenji feels a disorienting sensation. She realizes her vision is starting to blur, making her anxious that they might be slow to react if a monster suddenly appears. Her concern is immediately validated when a transparent, cube-shaped barrier suddenly materializes around the entire squad, trapping them inside. Instead of panicking, Kongu assesses the situation calmly, stating with confidence that this should solve the problem. The barrier's effect becomes clear as the visual distortion vanishes. Sarenji praises their leader's coolness, but Hiato dismisses it as flattery. Their relief is cut short as Suzuna spots movement, exclaiming that the monsters are here as a horde of goblin-like creatures emerges and charges. Before the lead creature can strike, it is instantly cut down, its body falling in 2 pieces. Hiato watches, startled by the unseen, swift attack, and clenches his fist in reaction. He can only utter a sound of confusion. Before him, one of the charging goblins was suddenly sliced in 2 by an unseen force. Another followed, and then another, torn apart by invisible blades. Yanagi realized his initial thought was wrong. He had assumed Konga's ability was purely defensive. He now understood it was not nearly that simple. The barriers flying through the air were creating a scene of utter destruction before his eyes. As goblin bodies were flung about, torn to shreds, he saw his squad standing calmly behind their leader. He finally grasped that Konga didn't just possess the ultimate defense. He was an offensive-type ability user as well. Sarenji Reika, leaning back casually against the cave wall, remarked with a smile that their leader was just getting started and hadn't even used a single one of his properties yet. Her words caught his attention, and he questioned the term aloud. Properties? Hattorii Suzuna turned to him and explained that Kongu could grant his barriers one of 4 properties depending on the battle: absorption, explosion, distortion, and disintegration. He was stunned by the revelation. With the ability to enhance his already invincible barriers, Kongu was practically unstoppable. Watching the last of the goblins fall, Yanagi realized that at this rate, it didn't look like there would be a turn for him to fight at all. With the goblin threat completely neutralized, the squad stood together before a massive, ornate door set deep within the rock wall. The path forward now clear. Standing before the massive sealed doors, Kongu Takara notes that the place has a distinct, ominous feel to it. Beside him, Hattorii Suzuna voices her agreement, betting that a powerful enemy is waiting for them on the other side. This premonition of danger is not unique to them. Yanagi Hiato feels it too, a chilling sensation he recognizes as the scent of death emanating from beyond the door. He recalls Kokuri Hana's grave warning that one of the subjugation team members will die, a feeling familiar to any who have survived countless battles. His leader, Kongu, seems to share this grim understanding. He turns his intense gaze towards his squad and asks a single, pointed question. Are you ready? Yanagi affirms his readiness without hesitation. Hattorii Suzuna and Sarenji Reika stand beside him, their expressions firm and resolute, prepared for what is to come. With their resolve confirmed, 2 hands press against the massive stone doors, pushing them open with a deep, grinding groan. The doors part to reveal a vast, cavernous space beyond. Kongu leads the team inside, cautioning them to stay sharp, as they have no idea what awaits them in the darkness. Almost immediately, a serpentine head lunges from the shadows with a sharp hiss, startling the squad. The head belongs to a monstrous creature that steps fully into view. A massive lion with a thick mane, its body ending not in a normal tail, but in a long, venomous snake. The beast lets out a low, guttural growl, its blank eyes glowing with malice. The creature's composite nature shocks them. Yanagi shouts its identity, a chimera. He recognizes it as an A-rank monster, a terrifying fusion with the head of a lion, the body of a goat, and the tail of a venomous snake. Before they can fully process the threat, the chimera's lion head unleashes a torrent of fire. This is a truly troublesome foe, one whose head and tail possess independent consciousness, making it doubly dangerous. Its fiery breath slams against a newly materialized dark barrier. Behind the shield, Hiato and his companions stand in scathe as a voice declares the defensive maneuver. Absorption. Before the flames fully dissipate, Hattorii Suzuna becomes a blur of motion, rushing forward. Hiato watches, startled, realizing he is witnessing one of her special properties in action. As she moves, the Chimera roars, its attack thwarted. Sparks of energy crackle around its powerful form as it prepares to charge again. The beast's aggression is cut short as a small, dark object streaks through the air directly towards its face. The object strikes the Chimera's back with explosive force, sending a spray of dark matter across its body and causing it to stumble forward from the impact. Hiato stares in disbelief, wondering when she could have possibly moved. He learns that this is Hattori's ability, Excel, which grants her the power to accelerate any target or phenomenon, making it the fastest ability in the world. Her power proves overwhelming. As the Chimera lets out a final, furious roar, its head suddenly erupts in a massive explosion. The creature's roar is silenced as its headless body collapses heavily onto the cavern floor. Hiato can only stare, asking what just happened. The answer comes from Sarenji Reika, who turns to him with a cheerful smile, holding a small device. She playfully asks if the explosion was tasty and offers another. Her ability is teleport, allowing her to move to any location in her line of sight or that she has visited before. Her hand holds the key to the monster's demise. The explanation is simple. She can also teleport any object she is touching. She teleported the bomb she was holding directly into the Chimera's mouth. The Chimera, mortally wounded and collapsing, has a final, dawning realization. It understands now that it faced not mere soldiers, but the chosen ability users. As the beast falls silent, Hattorii Suzuna stands ready with her blade, declaring this victory a demonstration of the true power of the Special Countermeasures Unit. Sarenji Reika smiles beside her, while their leader, Kangatakeru, watches his team with a steady, focused gaze. Yanagi Hiato stared in disbelief. Before him, the Special Countermeasures Unit had effortlessly overpowered an A-rank monster, a fearsome chimera. Hattorii Suzuna, watching alongside him, quietly acknowledged the immense power their unit possessed. As they walked forward, Kangatakeru turned to the young man, stating that the rest was all his. Sarenji Reika remarked on the creature's toughness, but Kongu assured them they were almost at their destination. Yanagi looked on, startled by the sudden responsibility. He faced the weakened, but still roaring chimera. With a confident smile, Kongu gave the order, finish it with one blow. Yanagi affirmed the command as the beast lunged forward with a final, desperate roar. He met the charge head-on, leaping into the air. Invoking the name Mars, he commanded the power to shatter, his fist glowing with immense energy as he aimed for the monster's head. With a final shout of Mountain Crusher, his fist connected, obliterating the chimera's head in a devastating explosion of force. The beast's body collapsed, a gaping hole torn through it. Hattorii Suzuna marveled at the incredible power that pierced the chimera's tough hide. Yanagi humbly deflected the praise, stating it was only possible because they had weakened it for him. With the threat eliminated, Kongu confirmed the monster's presence was gone. He then noticed Sarenji Reika's concerned expression and asked her what was wrong. She voiced her unease, wondering aloud what could have happened to the survey team they were sent to find. Her concern was immediately validated by Kongu. He pointed out that they hadn't seen a single trace of the team on their way in, and more disturbingly, there were no signs that the Chimera had even fought them in this room. He voiced the question on everyone's mind. Where was the survey team? With no immediate answer, he directed his unit to search the cavern. His team spread out, examining the rocky walls around the Chimera's corpse. Hattorii Suzuna turned back to him, reporting that she'd found nothing particularly suspicious. With the search yielding no clues, Sarenji Reika suggested they should head back for now, an idea Kongu seemed to agree with. But just then, Yanagi Hayato's attention was caught by something unusual. He moved closer to the wall, pointing out a strange orb embedded within a rock. Hattorii approached, and together they stared at the object, questioning what it could be. Without warning, the orb erupted in a blinding flash of light. From across the cavern, Kongi yelled out their names in alarm. The light overwhelmed them. Both Yanagi and Hattorii flinched, shielding their faces from the intense glare, groaning in disorientation. Moments later, the light faded, revealing not the familiar cave, but a dense, unfamiliar forest. Yanagi looked around at the towering, pale trees and voiced his confusion. Where are we? She shared his bewilderment, recalling that they were just inside the cave. He theorized that the light from the orb might have transported them to another dimension. He grimly accepted the reality of their situation. They had been forcibly teleported. Hattorii's expression hardened as she came to a conclusion. The fight with the Chimera was just the beginning, and the real battle was starting now. She immediately tried to contact the others, but her phone showed no signal. With a worried look, she lowered the device, voicing her concern about the whereabouts of Kongu and the rest of their squad. She calls out to Hiato, pointing towards something in the distance. He, however, is still processing their sudden displacement, wondering if they were sent to an entirely different location or somehow still within the Chimera's cave. His gaze follows her gesture to a colossal tree, which he estimates to be about 20 meters tall. Hattorii suggests they head toward the giant tree, speculating that it might hold the key to their return. He agrees without hesitation. As they walk through the dense forest, a grim thought surfaces in his mind. He'd rather not consider it, but he recalls that there have been 3 past cases of phenomena similar to this one. These incidents all involved a specific type of monster, one that drags others into its own dimension to toy with them on its own terms. The one thing all 3 cases had in common was a terrifying rule. You cannot escape the dimension until you defeat its master. And in every instance, the monster was S-rank. Her voice cuts through his dark thoughts. She observes that if their situation is another one of those cases, then Senior Kakuri's prophecy is starting to sound more and more credible. He turns, surprised by her statement. Suddenly, her attention is drawn to a figure slumped against a tree. She gasps, recognizing the uniform as belonging to the survey team. Yanagi is stunned. Realizing this means the survey team is trapped in this dimension as well. They approach the body. The man's eyes are vacant and lifeless. Hattorii quietly expresses her hope that the other members are still alive, while Yanagi wonders aloud if the man was killed by a monster or simply ran out of food. The man remains still. Hattorii, determined, states that they might find out more about the others if they keep going. She agrees with the unspoken decision to press on. Deep within the forest, another member of the survey team, this one alive, hides within the hollow of a great tree, his eyes wide with terror. Unaware of the hidden survivor, Hattorii and Yanagi approach the same area. She points forward, announcing that the giant tree is just ahead. As they walk, Yanagi expresses his hope that if Kongu and the others are also in this dimension, they too are heading for the tree. Hattorii agrees, hoping they are searching for the same landmark. He suddenly freezes, his eyes widening in alarm. Hattorii turns toward him, startled and confused by his abrupt halt. Following his gaze, they are met with a gruesome spectacle. The bodies of numerous people are impaled on sharp, twisted branches, hanging lifelessly in the air. Yanagi stares, unable to process the horror. Her expression shifts to one of dawning horror as she recognizes them. She cries out that those are the missing members of the survey team. In that moment of shock, a massive, dark root erupts from the ground and slams into Yanagi, sending him flying. Hattorii reacts instantly, leaping back as the ground cracks under the force of the blow. The root stills, and a deep voice emanates from it, remarking with impressed surprise that its attack was dodged. The source is revealed to be the giant tree itself. A face of ancient bark stares down at them, its eyes glowing ominously as it speaks, noting that they are merely human. Yanagi, back on his feet, looks up at the colossal entity. With a calm expression, he acknowledges that this is going to be a pain. Before Yanagi Hiato and Hattorii Suzuna stands a colossal tree ant, its wooden face twisted into a grimace. Impaled on its branches are the bodies of the survey team. The colossal creature speaks, its voice ancient and deep, expressing its surprise that a mere human could dodge its attack. She turns to Hiato, her expression serious, and asks if this entity is the master of the space they are in. He looks back, confirming that it most likely is. In response, the Trent's face contorts as its glowing eyes narrow. It lets out a booming command for them to fear it. His suspicion is confirmed. Hiato realizes that not only does the creature understand human speech, but there is no doubt in his mind. This is an S-rank monster. The monster unleashes its power, roaring a single word: despair. Instantly, a thicket of sharp wooden roots erupts violently from the ground around the 2 students. They leap apart, narrowly avoiding the impaling roots that burst from the earth. As she lands, Suzuna quickly analyzes the situation, noting that while the attacks aren't overwhelmingly powerful, they are highly adaptable. He lands nearby, agreeing with her assessment. He adds that their adaptability is precisely what makes their trajectory so difficult to predict. As he continues his assessment, a spectral image of the warrior Mars appears behind him. He notes that the fact the monster's main body remains stationary presents an opportunity. He concludes his thought with action. Declaring it an easy target, he throws a powerful punch, the spectral warrior mirroring his movement as his fist connects with an unseen force, creating a massive shockwave. The impact reverberates with a sickening squelch. Cracks begin to spread across the Trent's wooden face as its massive form starts to break apart. Hiato and Suzuna watch intently as the damage unfolds. His powerful blow is not enough. The massive gash on the Trent's face begins to mend itself, the wood and bark knitting back together as its glowing eyes stare forward. He and Hattorii Suzuna watch the creature's recovery. He identifies the ability as regeneration, while she grimaces, noting what a pain it is. The Treant mocks Hiato, roaring that he never stood a chance. Leaping back, Hiato remarks on what a talkative tree it is. He raises his fist, his expression hardening as he tells the monster to be quiet for a moment. With the spectral form of Mars behind him, he unleashes a new technique, Meteor Swarm, sending a volley of energy blasts crashing down into the forest. The attack seems to have no effect. Strange, pulsating growths emerge from the Trent's trunk as it condescendingly asks if Hiato still doesn't understand, musing that humans are merely humans. It finishes its taunt, calling them comical creatures. Hiato realizes his initial assumption was naive. Simply blasting a piece of it would not be enough to kill it. He confers with Suzuna, stating that the target is too large. She asks if he can use the technique that defeated Ritter, but he counters, theorizing that the treant must have some kind of core. She reacts with disbelief, questioning how they're supposed to find a core inside such a massive body. She dismisses the idea as unrealistic. He looks back toward the monster, pausing before revealing his thoughts. It's not that he doesn't have a technique that can wipe it out completely. The colossal treant monster looms over them, its wooden face contorted into a mocking grin. It taunts them, its voice like grinding bark, asking if that was all they had and what was wrong. He ignores the creature's taunts and turns to Hattorii Suzuna with a plan. He instructs her that when he gives the signal, she needs to jump as high as she possibly can. Though surprised, she agrees. His gaze then hardens as he thinks of his fallen comrades, apologizing for dragging them into this and swearing to lay their souls to rest if he makes it back to the surface. With the plan set, he steps forward, ethereal figures of his fallen allies rising from the ground around him. Facing the treant, he gives a signal, shouting now. He stomps his foot down hard, channeling immense energy into the earth as he unleashes his technique, Collapsing Star. The ground beneath the treant shatters instantly, revealing the monster's glowing core deep within the earth as a blinding light erupts from below. A massive, violent explosion of light and force tears through the forest floor. As the blinding flash subsides, Suzuna stares in utter shock while Hiato lands gracefully, bending a knee to absorb the impact. The aftermath is a scene of total devastation. A vast, perfectly circular crater has replaced the forest, with the two of them standing at its center. Suzuna can only whisper in awe at the unbelievable power display. She turns to Hiato, a hopeful smile forming. She reasons that after destroying so much of it, the monster must surely be dead now. Her optimism is met with a grim expression from him. He warns her that she just jinxed it. As he speaks, the ground at the edge of the crater begins to crack and tremble ominously. He and Hattorii Suzuna stand ready as the ground trembles violently, and from the earth rise two colossal treant monsters, their glowing eyes locking onto the pair. Stunned by this development, he questions aloud why the creature would have multiplied. Suzuna is equally bewildered by the sight. When the treant speaks, its voice a low rumble. It confirms that, just as Hiato predicted, it does indeed possess a core. It continues its explanation, clarifying that this vital core is not located within its physical body. The monster reveals that its core exists somewhere within the vast, sprawling space of the forest surrounding them. With a gesture of its wooden limbs, the treant challenges them to go and search for it. Hiato reacts with disbelief, stating that the area is far too large for such a task. The twin monsters grin with malice, openly wondering how long the two humans can last. They declare that the hunt should prove to be quite a show. He fully grasps the impossible nature of their situation. They must find a single, tiny core in a massive space, all while dodging the creature's countless attacking branches. Suzuna stands beside him, her expression grimly silent. Breaking her silence, she turns to him. She states that this task might be too much for Mars, and firmly tells Hiato to step back for a bit, leaving him momentarily confused. Her large ribbon flutters as she prepares to take the lead, ready to confront the challenge herself. She grips her sword, her expression hardening with resolve. A small cut marks her cheek, but her eyes are fixed on the unseen enemy. With absolute certainty, she declares her intention. She is going to kill that monster. As Yanagi Hiato looks on in confusion, Hattorii Suzuna, her expression unreadable, instructs him to step back for a moment. He asks what she is planning to do as the monstrous treant looms behind him. Gripping her sword, she states her intention plainly. She is going to kill that monster. She reasons that Hayato's ability lacks the necessary firepower to destroy the entire space they are in. Concluding that she has the better chance of success, she decides it has to be her. The two colossal treants seem to respond, their wooden faces twisting into mocking grins. They command her to search and to entertain them with her pathetic, futile struggles. Ignoring their taunts, she whispers a single word, an activation command. Excel. The word is a trigger. She explodes forward in a burst of speed, leaving a stunned Hiato calling out behind her as she becomes a blur streaking through the forest. The treant monster reacts with shock as explosions of displaced earth and air erupt in her wake. Still moving, Suzuna pushes herself, thinking she must be even faster. She pushes her speed to another level, moving so fast that multiple afterimages of her form appear, weaving between the trees in a complex, high-speed assault pattern. Her form becomes a streak of white light, carving a path directly through the dense woods toward her target. The treant roars in frustration, demanding she stand still. Hiato watches, astonished, realizing she tore through a third of the forest in the blink of an eye as she closes in and strikes the creature's massive limb. As he watches, Hattorii Suzuna unleashes her attack, a rapid series of strikes she calls 100 Blossoms Bloom, which tears into the treant's wooden form. Her technique allows her to accelerate indefinitely, blurring across the battlefield in a streak of motion. She reflects, however, that there's a limit. The immense speed takes a toll on her body, and she realizes that even this incredible technique is not enough to secure victory. The strain becomes visible as she pushes onward, her body trembling under the immense pressure of her own velocity. Her relentless assault infuriates the treant monsters, who roar in frustration, declaring that her flitting movements have become as annoying as an insect's. In response, a colossal, dark monolith erupts from the ground, covered in a dense lattice of white, woody vines. From the darkness, the Trent's glowing eyes glare as they bellow a new threat. They will grind her to dust. Watching the dire situation unfold, Yanagi Hiato shouts her name in alarm. His warning goes unheeded as Suzuna pivots, launching herself into the air with incredible agility. She uses the momentum to soar towards the peak of the monolith, blades held ready, and declares that she will end this now. She unleashes her ultimate technique, a blinding flurry of strikes she calls 3,000 worlds, sending countless slashes of light cascading down upon the monolith. The attack connects, and cracks begin to spiderweb across the monolith's surface. From within, the Treant monster expresses its disbelief, finding it impossible that a mere human could be the cause of its defeat. Its denial is cut short as the entire structure erupts in a cataclysmic explosion, sending dust and debris flying in all directions. In the aftermath, Yanagi Hiato rushes to Hattorii Suzuna's side as she collapses to her knees, the exertion of the attack taking its toll. He anxiously asks if she is alright. She reassures him with a confident wink, explaining that her direct hit destroyed the core and that the main body should now appear. A sudden, deep rumbling from below, however, catches them both by surprise. Peering over the edge of the newly formed crater, they look down into the darkness. A deep voice echoes up from the abyss, chiding her for her carelessness. From the smoke and shadows, the true form of the Treant monster rises, its massive face looming over them. It speaks, acknowledging with a hint of amusement that she did, in fact, manage to destroy one of its cores. The creature taunts them further, asking if they are ready to get started on the next one. The implication dawns on Suzuna with dawning horror as she whispers the words. One of them, her confidence shatters. The weight of the revelation is too much, and her sword slips from her grasp, clattering to the ground. An image of her squad flashes through her mind as she whispers an apology to them all, overwhelmed by a sense of hopelessness. Her gaze then falls upon Hiato. Filled with regret, she apologizes directly to him, taking responsibility for bringing him into this danger and lamenting her failure to protect him. She turned, startled, as a voice cut through her despair, telling her it was too soon to give up. Yanagi Hiato stepped between her and the looming Treant, which growled its desire to witness her utter despair. He calmly stated that he would handle things from this point. Alarmed, Suzuna cried out his name, telling him not to. Ignoring her plea, he spoke a single, powerful word, invoking the name of the sun god. Ra. In an instant, a blinding explosion of golden light erupted from his position, engulfing the area. The force of the blast was immense. As the light intensified, Suzuna could only stare in disbelief at the source of the power. From within the inferno, a colossal, spectral figure emerged, taking form behind Hiato. The entity, clad in the regalia of an ancient deity, towered over the battlefield, radiating immense power. His expression hardened with resolve as he faced the Treant, now backed by this divine power. He declared that it was now his turn. As the colossal Treant looms, a new, spectral figure wreathed in intense flames materializes behind Yanagi Hiato. Hattorii Suzuna watches in astonishment, wondering if this is yet another of his abilities. Hiato himself remains calm, the very ground at his feet beginning to steam from sheer heat. The entity is identified as Ra, a god who wields flames reaching several thousand degrees. It is said that nothing can escape the inferno at his command. The colossal tree monster scoffs at the sight, questioning the naive notion that it could be burned. In response, Hiato simply states, flames. As he steps forward, a protective ring of fire instantly erupts around Suzuna. He then addresses the creature directly, his voice steady. He tells it to stay put and be quiet, for he is about to turn it into ashes. The monster bellows in defiance, finding the boy's threat to be utterly absurd as it towers over him. Unfazed, the young man calmly remarks that the situation is unfortunate for the Treant. At his unspoken command, the spectral god behind him unleashes a cataclysmic explosion of fire, engulfing the area in a blinding white inferno. Through the inferno, the Treant lets out a low growl. Hiato meets its gaze without flinching and declares that for this monster, he is the Reaper. But the creature roars back, its body now glowing with absorbed energy. It bellows that in this state, no flame can harm it, warning the brat not to underestimate it as a brilliant light begins to shine from its core. The colossal Treant, now radiating the power it had absorbed, dismisses the entire effort as utterly foolish. From within her protective barrier, Suzuna watches in disbelief, as does Hiato. He remains defiant, his expression hardening. He declares that the monster's posturing before God is a farce so pathetic that he cannot even bring himself to laugh. The Trent's face contorts in confusion, and even Suzuna questions what Hiato means. As they watch, dark, crackling spheres of energy begin to coalesce in the air around it. These spheres erupt, not with explosions, but into the forms of several large, eerie clowns. Each figure is wreathed in the same dark, flickering energy from which they were born. With a confident smirk, Hiato issues a simple command to his new creations, telling the frantic clowns to dance. At his word, the clown figures spring to life, charging across the scorched earth directly toward the surprised Treant. The Treant roars in fury, questioning how this new summoner dares to call his creation a god. It swats one of the charging clowns aside, causing it to detonate on impact. Its rage intensifies as it bellows about the preposterous audacity to be mocked. A massive root slams down, crushing another clown figure beneath its weight. The Treant roars for the creature to be gone, but as its appendage strikes, the clown doesn't shatter. Instead, it seems to melt, its substance clinging and spreading across the attacking root. The strange, dark fire from the destroyed clowns doesn't extinguish. It spreads rapidly, engulfing the Treant's roots and climbing up its massive trunk in an unstoppable conflagration. The creature's form erupts in a series of violent explosions. Hattorii Suzuna braces herself against the concussive force, surrounded by the swirling aftermath of the fiery assault. Despite the devastating attack, the Treant remains standing, its wooden form charred but intact. Yanagi Hiato watches, acknowledging the creature's stubbornness. He remarks that he was certain he had shattered its core. The ancient being's glowing eyes fix upon him, its voice a low rumble as it mockingly asks if that was all he had to offer. It then lets out a triumphant roar, declaring that this must be the limit of a mere human's power, and that in this space, no one could possibly match. Hayato's expression remains unchanged by the taunt. He calmly tells the creature not to misunderstand the situation. As he speaks, the power behind him shifts. A new stage is initiated. Phase Ascension. RA's spectral hands begin to multiply and coalesce. The transformation completes in a brilliant flash of light, revealing Hiato levitating in the air. Behind him looms the full, multi-armed form of the sun god, RA. Both the Treant and Hattorii Suzuna stare in disbelief, questioning what manner of being he truly is. He floats effortlessly amidst the divine energy, staff in hand, and repeats his earlier claim with absolute certainty. He is a god. In response to this declaration, the Treant lets out a final, desperate roar as Hiato announces that the time of ruin has come. He extends his hand, channeling his power directly at the monster. He commands it to suffer the pain of all those it has killed. He unleashes the full might of his divine power, declaring the attack to be the flames of the end. A torrent of fire erupts from his being, surging towards the colossal Treant. The inferno engulfs the creature, its wooden face cracking and splintering under the immense pressure and heat. A pained grunt escapes its form as it begins to break apart. The cracking sound echoes as the entire landscape is consumed by the blast, reducing the forest to ash and ruin in a blinding flash. Suddenly, a previously unseen barrier shatters from the force of the impact, accompanied by a distant, agonized roar. As the cataclysm subsides, a figure lands softly on the scorched, smoking earth. The person revealed is not Hiato, but another young man, his clothes torn to shreds. He touches his cheek, remarking that the blast stung and that he likely won't be bathing for a while. Behind him, the spectral form of RA finally dissipates. He stands alone, surveying the vast, barren wasteland created by the battle. Looking towards the horizon, he acknowledges to himself that he still has a long way to go. The sky above is calm, dotted with clouds. The tranquility is broken as the remnants of a colossal foe disintegrate high in the air. On the ground below, Yanagi Hiato stands, his clothes tattered, while Hattorii Suzuna kneels, both looking up in surprise. With the threat gone, he turns to his companion, asking if she is all right. He observes that it looks like they can finally get out of there. She looks up at him, a silent question in her eyes. He recognizes her, calling out her name, Hattorii. She quickly rises to her feet, confirming that she is okay. She clarifies that she wasn't injured, but was simply taken aback by the sheer scale of his power. She then presses him, reminding him of his declaration about being a god during the battle. He turns away, a moment of silence passing between them. Her curiosity piqued. She asks him directly who he is. He looks back, feigning confusion and asking what she's talking about. His expression softens into a gentle smile as he introduces himself plainly. He is Yanagi Hiato, nothing more and nothing less. His simple answer surprises her. He quickly pivots the conversation, stating that more importantly, she had been planning to take on that monster with him, hadn't she? He sighs, asking with a hint of melancholy if he really seems that unreliable. Flustered, she waves her hands frantically, denying that she was thinking anything of the sort. He begins to explain his reasoning, revealing that a similar situation occurred when he was a rookie, where his senior sacrificed himself to save him. Before he can finish his thought, she interrupts with a shout, insisting that's not at all. Her voice was quiet but firm as she began to explain her reasoning, stating that this time, she thought it was her turn. She looked at him with wide, sincere eyes, her hand pressed against her chest, declaring that she believed it was her turn to sacrifice herself in order to save him. Her words hung in the air between them, a stark contrast to the silent, ruined landscape surrounding them. He stood motionless, taking in her confession. His expression hardened, a shadow crossing his face as he spoke a single, sharp phrase. I hate that way of thinking. His blunt rejection of her sentiment caught her completely off guard, her eyes widening in surprise. She conceded that he might not be wrong, but she insisted that the choice to die for someone is a painful one. Her expression filled with a deep, personal pain as she added that the suffering is far greater for the one who is left behind. Stepping back, she offered him a different path. She told him that the resolve to die is unnecessary. Instead, they should fight with the resolve to survive. A small smile touched his lips, his gaze clearing with newfound determination. He agreed, stating his refusal to lose, no matter the opponent. He then made a solemn vow directly to her. He would be the one to protect her. The declaration left her momentarily speechless, her eyes wide with surprise. She looks at him, her expression a mix of confusion and awe, and asks why he would go to such lengths for her. He answers plainly, explaining that she was the one who pulled him out of his gray, suffocating existence. He continues with a bright smile, tapping his chest with his fist. To him, she is a benefactor, and he insists that she should never hesitate to rely on him for anything. Her voice, tinged with skepticism, questions if he is truly certain about his offer. She warns him that she might be more trouble than she's worth, but he simply states that's what he's hoping for. With a confident grin, he extends a hand and declares that, after all, he is the strongest. Her doubts vanish, replaced by a radiant smile as she firmly grasps his offered hand. With their understanding solidified, they walk out from the mouth of the cave. They soon regrouped with Kongu and the others, who had apparently been planning a rescue mission from just outside. Seeing the state he's in, Kongu calls out, alarmed by his wounds. He urgently tells Serenji to get Kurisaka to help. Serenji quickly moves to his side, putting a supportive arm around his shoulders and telling him not to worry. Suzuna, on his other side, adds that Mocha's healing will have him fixed up in no time. Despite their reassurances, a shadow of doubt crosses his face. He thinks to himself that he wishes it were that simple. As the group walks away from the cave, now safe, Kongu declares with relief that everyone made it back alive, successfully overturning Kakuri's dire prophecy. He received praise for his efforts, a quiet acknowledgement of a job well done. The immediate danger passed, leaving only the quiet rustle of leaves in the forest. A few days later, he found himself recovering in a sterile room at the central hospital, gazing out the window. He recalled the events leading to his hospitalization. Hattorii Suzuna had been distraught, crying that her healing powers hadn't been enough to mend his wounds completely. He, in turn, reflected that Kurisaka's healing had been more effective than he'd thought, though it still wasn't enough to avoid a hospital stay. His thoughts were interrupted by the sound of the door sliding open and a cheerful voice announcing a visitor. It was his sister, calling out to her niece. She entered with a bright smile, asking about his condition. Standing beside her, looking far more hesitant, was Hattorii Suzuna. He stared, momentarily speechless, managing only to stammer his sister's name as he tried to process the scene before him. His confusion gave way to incredulity as he pointed, demanding to know what they were wearing. He shouted that he could plainly see it was a nurse's uniform. He then directed his attention to his teammate, asking why she had come along. A flustered Suzuna explained that Ao had insisted, claiming it was the kind of thing he would appreciate. He sputtered, trying to clarify that while he didn't necessarily dislike it, that wasn't the issue at hand. Despite his protests, his wide-eyed, sweating expression betrayed his complete shock at the unexpected visit. He watches as Suzuna, flustered by her nurse outfit, tells him not to stare. He blames his sister for the embarrassing situation, but Ao has already departed after giving him a quick pat on the head and a bit of praise. With the initial awkwardness fading, Suzuna takes a seat and asks him about his actual condition. He reassures her, stating that he's almost completely healed. She then inquires further, asking if the burns on his body are a side effect of the power he used. He smiles, confirming her suspicion. He explains that he had no other option, as he was facing an S-rank opponent. She seems unconcerned by the mention of rank. He muses that for someone with his sister's overwhelming power, the distinction between an S rank and an F rank is meaningless. Changing the subject, he asks her to call their mother soon, mentioning that his sister's score has been rising. He then asks to see her phone to show her the number. The screen displays a remarkably high number, 95080. He explains the context for this figure. A top-tier high school student score is around 10,000. For a middle schooler, Ao's score is unprecedented, likely making her unique in the entire country. He admits that while it's not at a critical level yet, the rapid increase is concerning. He asks Suzuna if she's noticed anything wrong, but she replies that everything seems normal. She elaborates, mentioning that she has recently taken up boxing at home and has also been making straw dolls. Her bizarre answer startles him, and he exclaims that her mind is wandering far too much. He stands aghast, exclaiming that normal middle school girls do not make straw dolls. From her seat, Suzuna calmly questions his shock, asking if it isn't a perfectly normal thing to do. His protest is cut short by the sudden vibration of his phone. He glances down, a thought striking him that he needs to make a call immediately. He clutches his head, frustrated that his body has deteriorated so much without him realizing it. The phone continues to buzz, the screen displaying an incoming call from Kongu. As the phone buzzes insistently, his expression hardens into one of serious resolve. He answers the call, now in a hospital room where his sister, Ao, lies in bed. "This is Yanagi," he states into the phone, as Ao quietly acknowledges his presence with a simple yes. In a hospital room, Yanagi receives a call. He confirms his identity to the man on the other end, Kongu, who is walking down a sterile corridor and asks if something is wrong. Kongu asks about the state of his injuries. Yanagi, with a hint of surprise, reports that he is almost fully healed, a fact that brings him considerable relief. He pauses in the hallway, finding the word relief curious. He quietly wonders to himself if something specific happened to warrant such a feeling. Putting the thought aside, he gets to the point of his call, informing Yanagi that an emergency Imperial Council meeting is being held shortly. He warns that, depending on the situation, they might need his strength again. Yanagi understands completely. Kongu instructs him to be prepared and promises to call again after the meeting concludes. After the call ends, Suzuna, who has been sitting quietly, remarks that he's already in high demand, like a full-fledged member of the unit. Yanagi explains he might have to deploy again soon. She smiles, confident he can't lose, but gently reminds him not to push himself too hard. Elsewhere, the Imperial Council convenes. A man with long, light hair walks to a podium at the head of a V-shaped table, thanking the assembled members for gathering on such short notice. This is an assembly of great importance, where veterans of national defense and the heads of anti-secrecy organizations come together. Kongu sits among them, his expression grim. The gathering is composed of these and other illustrious figures, all convened to address the urgent matter at hand. At the head of the table, the Anti-Monster Task Force executive, Shirakami Jinya, steeples his fingers and formally begins the meeting. He confirmed that the preliminary documents had been reviewed, stating that the agenda concerned the second daughter of the Takamia family, one of Japan's most distinguished clans. He elaborated to the assembled council that her ability, Origin Sublime, is exceptionally rare and valuable. Critically, he revealed that information about this power had been leaked to the outside. A woman on the council interjected, confirming the severity of the leak. She reported that numerous hostile parties were already in position, attempting to abduct the girl. In response to this threat, Shirakami Jinya declared that their top priority was ensuring the daughter's safety. He then turned to Kongu Takaru, seeking the opinion of the Special Countermeasures Unit, to which Kongu affirmed his agreement. He laid out his initial plan. He suggested using Sarenji's teleportation ability to move the girl to the Takamia family's heavily fortified protection facility, which should secure her without any external exposure. However, his proposal was immediately challenged. Samejima Yoshido, the Kyushu branch chief, pointed out a significant problem. They were currently dealing with a series of mysterious disappearances in Kyushu perpetrated by monsters. He continued, explaining that Lady Sarenji's power was specifically required to resolve the matter in Kyushu, leaving Kongu to listen in silence. Kongu expressed his surprise, stating this was the first he had heard of these mysterious disappearances. Samejima countered that they had only obtained conclusive evidence on the matter the other day. Despite the new information, Kongu initially dismissed the conflict, stating it was no issue to send Reika. Internally, however, he acknowledged the truth in Samejima's assessment. Sarenji's ability would indeed be the most effective way to rescue them. The complexity of the situation became clear as another figure was brought into consideration, Lord Yugen, head of the Sarenji family. As Reika's father and a crucial supplier of the nation's weaponry, his influence could not be ignored. He addresses the council, stating his understanding that a great many protectors have already gathered at the Takamia estate. Another council member, Shirakami Jinya, questions the necessity of dispatching the Special Countermeasures Unit, noting that it seems excessive since the Takamia family employs its own ability users. He offers further reassurance, announcing that he will personally be sending a shipment of weapons to the Takamia family. Konga Takaru, seated at the table, expresses his relief at this news. He accepts this arrangement, agreeing that it would be for the best. He then confirms that his unit will proceed with the escort mission as soon as the matter in Kyushu is settled. Shirakami Jinya's expression hardens as he listens to the resolution, preparing to formalize the decision. He then declares the council's official verdict. The Special Countermeasures Unit will proceed to Kyushu to subjugate the unidentified monster. Sarenji Yugen gives a confident smile and an okay gesture, confirming that his family will provide the necessary weaponry. Another council member adds that all other parties will remain on standby to ensure a swift response in case of an emergency. With all points settled and agreed upon, Shirakami Jinya formally concludes the meeting. As Konga begins to rise from his seat, Shirakami calls out to him, asking for a moment of his time. Konga stops and agrees. From across the room, Sarenji Yugen and Samejima Yoshido exchange a silent, knowing glance. As Shirakami Jinya leads Konga Takaru down a sterile corridor, Konga's attention is caught by a silent, masked figure standing nearby. Shirakami explains that the aide is a telepath who serves as his liaison with the outside world. Kongu turns back to Shirakami, stating that something had concerned him. The masked aide reacts to his words, turning sharply. The SCU leader gestures to their surroundings, a spacious, circular chamber, and asks if it is protected by a soundproofing barrier. Shirakami confirms his perception, remarking on his sharpness. He looks on with a serious expression, prompting Kongu to deduce that this must be a private conversation. Shirakami then reveals his true purpose. He needs Kongu to send a single operative to the Takamia family to act as a guard. The order startles Kongu, who points out that this would be the same as ignoring Lord Yugen's public statement. He dismisses the concern, explaining that the proposal came from Lord Yugen in the first place. Shirakami reveals that Yugen suspects there is a mole within the Royal Council, a revelation that shocks Kongu. The entire public strategy, Shirakami clarifies, was a ruse designed to draw the traitor out into the open. Kongu listens, the pieces of the puzzle falling into place. With a look of grim determination, Shirakami declares that they cannot allow a malignant presence among those who run the country, and that they will use this opportunity to purge them all. Takaru considered the man's proposal, his expression turning serious. He questioned the difficulty of a covert protection detail, pointing out that the leadership knew all of his current operatives inside and out. Shirakami's face lit up with a knowing grin. He declared that there was one man they were not yet familiar with, the one who had just joined their ranks. A look of understanding dawned on Kanga's face. As they spoke, the masked aide standing nearby jolted in surprise. Shirakami turned to leave, remarking that he felt bad assigning such a task to a rookie and that he would send a gift later to avoid being seen as an exploitative organization. His words did little to calm the aide, who rushed forward, calling out his name in alarm. Unperturbed, Shirakami simply turned and asked what the matter was. Whatever the aide relayed shattered his composure. Shirakami's eyes widened in disbelief, sweat beading on his brow as he leaned in and demanded furiously, "What did you say?" He spun around, his voice low and urgent as he commanded the aide to keep their eyes on the subject without fail. Noticing the sudden shift, Kangu asked what was wrong. Ignoring the question, Shirakami's face hardened, his gaze intense. He announced with grave finality that the King of Destruction had arrived. At that moment, a traveler stepped onto the polished floor of an airport terminal, reflecting that it had been some time since their last visit to Japan. Outside, a passenger jet rested on the tarmac. Elsewhere, a document was being examined, a monster subjugation report. It detailed the defeat of an S-rank monster in the Labyrinth cave by Yanagi Hiato, who was noted as being unranked in a world hierarchy. The man holding the report, a confident individual with light-colored hair, let out a soft chuckle. He remarked that it looked like someone interesting had finally appeared. This was Abel Leon, known as the Absolute and ranked 7th in the world. At an airport, Abel Leon strides through the terminal, pulling a rolling suitcase. He holds a document in one hand, a confident smirk on his face as he notes that someone interesting has finally shown up. The document is a monster subjugation report, detailing the defeat of an S-rank monster in the Labyrinth cave. The person credited is Yanagi Hiato, whose world rank is listed as unranked. Outside the terminal window, airplanes wait on the tarmac. As he passes by, a group of students are struck by his imposing presence. One exclaims at his height, guessing he must be at least 2 meters tall, while another comments on his muscular chest. One of the students, a boy with dark hair, suddenly stops. A look of realization crosses his face as he wonders if he recognizes the man. Elsewhere, a blonde student's eyes widen in recognition. He identifies the man as Abel Leon, one of the Absolutes. The Absolutes are 8 ultimate beings in the world, individuals who have surpassed the limits of humanity, their immense power casting a colossal shadow over the world. Abel finds a seat in the waiting area, casually resting. It is said that the power of the Absolutes rivals even that of the gods, and that governments worldwide have given up trying to control them. A single one of them is capable of slaughtering multiple S-rank monsters. He is one of them. Abel Leon, Absolute rank 7, also known as the King of Destruction. His methods of fighting are said to be exceptionally brutal. He glances down at the report again. The idea of an unranked individual, a complete unknown, taking down an S-rank monster is completely unheard of. His gaze lifts, a sharp, interested grin spreading across his face. He decides he would like to meet this Yanagi Hiato and ask him a few questions. He sat casually, his luggage beside him, addressing the man in the suit who had come to meet him. He noted with a smirk that the Japanese government was quick to catch a scent. The government agent, visibly nervous, offered his sincerest apologies. He explained that any action from Lord Leon had the potential to impact the entire nation, hence their immediate response. Unconcerned, he told the agent not to worry, as he was accustomed to such attention. The agent then cautiously inquired about the purpose of his current visit to Japan. He replied with a confident grin that it was merely a hunch, a feeling that something interesting was about to happen, noting that his hunches were usually correct. Suddenly, he rose and draped an arm over the startled agent's shoulders, declaring that he was starving and demanding to be taken to a good place to eat. Meanwhile, at the Japan branch of the Special Countermeasures Unit, Takaru briefed a younger subordinate on a solo escort mission. He apologized for assigning the task, so soon after the young man had recovered from an injury, the young man assured him that it was not a problem and that he understood the circumstances. Kangu then elaborated on the mission's details. To uncover corruption within the upper echelons, the subordinate would need to blend in with the guards, keeping his true identity concealed. He then inquired about the target of the escort mission, asking if the ability possessed by the Takamia family's second daughter was truly as valuable as it seemed. Kangu confirmed its significance, revealing its name, Origin Sublime. He explained that it was a troublesome power capable of enhancing anything, not just living creatures. The subordinate's expression grew serious as he processed the information. He agreed, acknowledging that an ability of that nature would undoubtedly make its user a target for many. With renewed resolve, he formally accepted the assignment. He stated that if Kangu believed him to be the right person for the task, he would humbly take on the responsibility, offering a respectful bow as his superior turned to depart. He was stopped by a voice calling his name, Yanagi. He turned back from the doorway, a questioning look on his face. His superior, Takaru, stated that there was something he needed to discuss with him regarding his ability. Moments later, on the building's rooftop, Kangu offered him a canned coffee, asking if black was acceptable. Yanagi accepted it with a word of thanks. After opening his own drink, Kangu posed a serious question, asking Yanagi if he believed a human had ever been born with multiple abilities. He considered the thought for a moment before replying that he did not believe so. They stood together at the railing, looking out over the city. Kongu confirmed that possessing multiple abilities is normally impossible, but theorized that if someone could, they would become an absolute existence, capable of handling any situation. It was for that very reason, Kongu explained that the government had long ago begun research to artificially create such individuals. He continued, recounting that they eventually found a compatible woman, and for a time, the experiment was considered a success. But the success was an illusion. 1 week later, she lost her life. Her body, the very vessel of her soul, was simply not enough. It was far too small to contain the immense power of multiple abilities. The experiment was immediately halted. Kongu concluded his story, explaining that at the time, even a body ranked among the most powerful in the world, in the single digits, could not withstand the strain. He explains that this is one of the government's top secret matters, not something that would leak to the outside world so easily. The young man, Yanagi, looks stunned, admitting he had no idea such a thing had happened. The young man looks up at him, his expression earnest as he asks why Kongu is telling him something so important. To this, Kongu simply replies, "Because it's you," leaving Yanagi momentarily speechless. He continues, revealing that he heard from Hattorii. She reported that the ability Yanagi used to defeat the monster in the cave was different from the one he had previously shown Kongu. His gaze intensifies, and his question trails off as he asks, "Are you a multiple ability user?" The question hangs in the air between them on the rooftop. Kongu waits in silence for an answer, his expression serious. After a moment, Yanagi turns his head slightly and states that, in terms of abilities, he only has one. Kongu looks taken aback, questioning the claim. He then bows deeply, apologizing and promising to explain everything in detail when the time is right. Kongu holds up a hand, assuring him that he isn't trying to rush him. He admits that thinking about the past experiment just made him a little worried. He concluded their conversation with a stern warning, reminding Yanagi to be extremely careful when using his powers. Kongu stressed that only Yanagi could truly know the state of his own body. With a confident smile, Yanagi affirmed that he understood. He acknowledged that Kongu was counting on it. With the conversation concluded, Yanagi turned and sprinted away, leaving Kongu to watch his departure from the rooftop. Once the young man was gone, Kongu stood in silence for a moment before reaching into a pocket on his uniform. He pulled out a simple, silver-colored locket, its smooth surface reflecting the light as he held it in his palm. With a soft click, the locket opened, revealing a photograph of a cheerful young boy, a much younger version of himself, winking and flashing a peace sign. He stood alone on the windswept rooftop, his gaze fixed on the memento from his past, his expression unreadable and distant. Under the light of a full moon, a tall, weathered apartment building stands against the starry night sky, its facade marked by cracks in time. Inside a dimly lit room, Sarenji Yugen laughs with manic energy, expressing his disbelief that the formidable great tree was actually defeated. Behind him, two figures stand in the shadows, a large, horned creature and a smaller, amorphous entity. The shadowy entity laments that the creature, despite being a rotten S-rank, should have at least been able to kill one of its opponents. The horned monster, holding a gourd, scoffs, declaring that he should have handled the matter himself in the very beginning. Yugen turns to his monstrous companion, asking what happened. The horned being dismissively replies that their fallen asset was simply weak. The shadow entity then reports its findings from the cave, explaining that it discovered faint traces of a flame ability having been used at the site. Yugen finds this puzzling, questioning the information by stating that there shouldn't be any flame ability users within Japan's Special Countermeasures Unit. The realization strikes him with force. He asks, aghast, if this means their opponent is a multiple ability user. The shadow entity confirms this, adding that this is precisely why it sent that person. His shock instantly transforms into a wide, manic grin. He declares that he wants them, that they must acquire this individual at any cost. The shadow entity calmly notes that it is a possibility. His face contorts with obsessive desire, his mouth stretching into a monstrous maw as he fantasizes about dissecting the subject and understanding their body structure. The shadow entity interjects, telling him to calm himself and not lose sight of their objective. Yugen quickly apologizes. The shadow entity explains that absorbing such an ability would lead to a significant increase in their power. It then shifts the topic, stating that they have gathered to discuss the matter of a certain little girl. The hulking, red-skinned Oni monster, a companion to the shadow entity, snarls with impatience, demanding to know the location of their female target. In response, the formless shadow entity reports that she is currently at the Takamia residence, but adds that she is scheduled to be moved to a protection facility soon. The Oni's snarl twists into a malevolent grin. The news that she will have a whole swarm of skilled guards only serves to amuse him, making the prospect of the attack sound like fun. He clenches his fists, radiating destructive energy. He roars that as long as he gets to go on a rampage, he couldn't care less about the guards and will slaughter every last one of them. Observing this display, a man with long dark hair and glasses sighs in exasperation, muttering to himself that the Oni is nothing but a simple-minded meathead. The scene shifts, revealing the target's location, the Takamia residence, a vast and opulent mansion fronted by an ornate fountain. A young man with spiky brown hair arrives at the estate, marveling at the sheer wealth required to build such a place. He is startled when a voice from the open doorway informs him that he has been expected. He turns to see a well-dressed man who introduces himself with a polite smile as Akai, the head butler. The visitor responds in kind, stating his name is Kashiwagi. Akai gestures welcomingly towards the open doors, inviting him inside. As Kashiwagi thanks him and enters, he thinks to himself that Kashiwagi is merely the alias he is using for this particular mission, leading him through the grand foyer. Akai expresses relief, stating they've heard Kashiwagi is a highly skilled ability user. He explains that the matter is urgent and they are grateful for his help. Kashiwagi humbly replies that it is a great honor to be entrusted with the escort. He is immediately met with a question from the butler, Akai, who wants to confirm his reason for accepting the mission. In response, he offers a plausible explanation. The master of the house once helped him out of a financial bind, and he is here to repay that kindness. Internally, however, he notes the butler's wariness, though he considers it to be expected. The butler's expression softens into a warm smile. He remarks that it sounds just like his master, who is always one to help someone in need. With the questioning concluded, Akai leads him down the ornate hallway. As he follows, Kashiwagi breathes a silent sigh of relief. He had made preparations so they wouldn't discover his affiliation with the Special Countermeasures Unit, but he knows he cannot let his guard down for a second. Their walk ends before a large set of double doors. Akai knocks gently, announcing his presence and stating that the young mistresses are waiting inside. He gestures for Kashiwagi to enter. Inside the room, two figures stand by the window. One is a young woman with a composed posture, and the other is a small child clutching a stuffed rabbit. The young woman turns to face him, her expression calm and welcoming. She introduces herself as Takamia Haruka, the eldest daughter of the family. Kashiwagi's eyes widen slightly in surprise. He observes her, thinking that while the butler's demeanor was surprising, Haruka's is even more so. Her expression is not that of a typical young girl. It is dignified and full of confidence. After her introduction, Haruka turns to the small child beside her, encouraging her to give her greeting as well. The little girl looks up shyly, clutching her rabbit tightly. She stammers for a moment before introducing herself as Takamia. Runa, the young girl, clutching her stuffed rabbit, looks up at Kashiwagi and asks with childlike innocence if he is a good person. He looks down, slightly taken aback, processing that this is one of his protection targets. He breaks into a warm, reassuring smile, confidently declaring himself to be an exceptionally good person. Her face lights up with a bright, relieved smile, and she expresses her gladness. Observing the successful introduction, Akai steps forward to announce that he will now explain the details of the escort mission. Kashiwagi notes with satisfaction that the young girl seems to trust him. He gathers Kashiwagi and the two sisters, laying out the plan. The primary objective is to transport Lady Haruka and Lady Runa to a secure protection facility. He clarifies that currently, the four of them are present at the Takamia residence, supported by 16 additional guards. The butler continues, detailing the logistics of their departure. A convoy of 5 cars will be used for the journey, each assigned 4 people. The vehicle carrying the young mistresses will be protectively surrounded by the others. His attention then turns directly to Kashiwagi. Akai asks for confirmation, stating his understanding that Kashiwagi is a detection-type ability user. Kashiwagi affirms this with a simple yes. Internally, however, he admits to himself that this is a lie. He reasons that the sensory perception granted by his Mars ability is more than sufficient to function as a detection-type power, making the deception a necessary one. Satisfied with the answer, he assigns him his specific role. Kashiwagi is to ride in the same vehicle as the butler and the young mistresses, and he will be required to provide constant updates on their surroundings. With that, he concludes the briefing. Haruka, her expression firm and mature, gives her assent for them to proceed. As if on cue, the doors open and a group of guards appears. Their leader, a bald man in sunglasses, loudly announces to Akai that the cars are ready and the guards are all set for departure. Inside the residence, Akai apologizes to Kashiwagi for rushing him so soon after his arrival. Kashiwagi, however, dismisses the apology with a simple, understood, showing he is ready for the mission. He then adds with a confident smile that the young mistress's safety is the top priority, leaving no doubt about his focus. With the objective clear, the 5-car convoy speeds down the highway. The hired guards are positioned throughout the vehicles, their expressions a mix of alertness and casual confidence as they begin the escort. Inside one of the cars, Akai glances at the rearview mirror and asks Kashiwagi if he detects any anomalies. Kashiwagi reports back that there are no irregularities within his detection range. He maintains a calm exterior, but internally acknowledges the strain of his ability. The detection range of Mars is a 300-meter radius, and continuously sensing the enormous flood of consciousness from everyone nearby is quite draining. His concentration is suddenly broken by a noise from the back seat. He turns to see the two sisters, Haruka and Runa, sitting together. The younger sister, Runa, clutches her stuffed rabbit, her eyes welling with tears as she whimpers to her older sister, "I'm scared." Her sister, Haruka, offers a gentle, reassuring smile. She tells Runa that it's all right because some very strong people are there to protect them. As she speaks, Haruka gently places a hand on Runa's head to comfort her. Kashiwagi observes this exchange from the front seat. The sight of their fear hardens his resolve. His hand clenches into a fist on his knee as he internally questions why these little sisters must endure such terror, pushing himself to sense everything, breathing, movements, and any trace of hostility. His senses flare, revealing the horrifying truth. Multiple monstrous entities are closing in on the convoy from above. His face hardens with resolve as he makes a silent, absolute vow. He will not let them lay a single finger on the girls. The source of the danger is an overpass looming ahead of the convoy's path. On that very structure, a figure clad in black tactical gear takes a knee. A gas mask and hood conceal their identity as they level a sniper rifle, taking aim at the row below. Under a bright sky, a convoy of vehicles travels along a multi-lane city highway, the buildings of the metropolis rising in the background. From a high vantage point atop one of those buildings, a sniper in full tactical gear kneels, taking careful aim with a high-caliber rifle at the traffic below. Inside the lead car, Kashiwagi's eyes widen in sudden alarm. Ikai, driving, calmly reports the threat. A sniper confirmed in a building 200 meters to their front right, prompting him to swerve the vehicle sharply. The sniper's shot impacts the asphalt just ahead of the car, erupting in a violent spray of debris and dust. As the car continues its high-speed maneuver, a second bullet hurtles towards it, only to be abruptly halted midair by a swirling shield of sand. The sniper recoils, stunned by the impossible sight of their bullet being blocked. They reason it could only have been stopped if the target was already waiting for it. Inside the vehicle, Ikai exhales in relief as Kashiwagi realizes his companion has the power to freely control sand. He turns to Ikai with a knowing smile, asking if he is a sand operator ability user. Ikai glances back, confirming that he is. He admits that while the ability may seem plain, he is quite fond of it because it's very versatile. Kashiwagi agrees, listing its potential uses, delivering attacks with immense weight, or even forcing an enemy to inhale the sand to be destroyed from within. He declares it a flawless ability. Ikai's expression becomes more serious. He wishes that were the case, then poses a pointed question. If his power was so perfect, why couldn't he protect her all by himself? As he speaks, the massive, bare foot of a giant creature slams down onto the highway ahead of them. He and his companions could only watch as the owner of the colossal foot revealed itself. A massive, red-skinned Oni, effortlessly hoisting a semi-truck above its head. Before they could process the monstrous sight, the screech of tires drew their attention to another immediate threat. From the back seat, Kashiwagi urgently reported 3 cars approaching from the rear at high speed. Ikai calmly acknowledged the warning. In the lead pursuing vehicle, the bald driver confirmed to his team that they had been noticed. His passengers affirmed, stating they would handle the rear. He gripped the steering wheel, a confident smirk on his face, and declared that once their targets were in range, he would blow them to smithereens, telling his team he was counting on them. He glanced at the heavily armored vehicles ahead, scoffing at the idea that a simple sand shield could block a single strike from his life amplification ability. His boast was cut short. The semi-truck, hurled through the air by the Oni, descended directly onto the lead armored car, triggering a massive explosion that engulfed the other two. The shockwave rocked their own vehicle. Kashiwagi and Ikai stumbled out, staring in disbelief at the sudden carnage. Stunned, Kashiwagi could only ask what had just happened. Nearby, the surviving pursuers had also exited their vehicle. The man in the cap reported to his leader that a truck had come flying from the side, taking out the armored cars. As Kashiwagi and Ikai stared at the fiery wreckage, a powerful voice boomed from within the smoke, declaring that the prey, their group, belonged to it. His former pursuers stood frozen, staring up at the colossal, horned creature. They identified it as an Oni, a talking monster. The beast glared down, its voice a low growl, warning them not to dare try and snatch away its chosen prey. From his position, he realized his mistake. He had let his guard down, assuming they were only being targeted by humans. He hadn't even considered the possibility of a monster attack. Inside the car, Takamia Haruka held Runa close, her expression tense. He cursed himself internally. It was a rookie mistake. His situational awareness as a unit member was pathetic. His self-reproach was interrupted as the guards, recovering their nerve, shouted that the Oni was the one who was going to die. The monster simply grinned, its teeth sharp and menacing, and asked which of them wanted to be first. Before they could react, the Oni moved. With impossible speed, it punched clean through one guard's torso and kicked another, causing both to disintegrate into particles of light. The bald leader could only watch in horror as his comrades vanished. As its foot descended to crush the leader, Ikai appeared in a flash, shielding the man. The guard, now kneeling and enveloped in a protective aura, looked up in disbelief, realizing he had been saved. The Oni paused, intrigued by this unexpected ability. The creature lowered its foot, taking a moment to bring a large gourd to its lips and drink deeply. It remarked that its opponents seemed capable of doing something interesting after all. He watched the scene unfold, completely stunned. An Oni, drinking sake in the middle of a battle. The combination of details sparked a sudden, shocking realization. The pieces fell into place, and he spoke the name that had surfaced in his mind, his voice cutting through the tense silence. Shuten Duji. The Oni turned its head, a knowing smirk spreading across its face. Oh, it rumbled, acknowledging the name. So someone here knows who I am. He is known as one of Japan's 3 great yokai, a creature who possesses an attribute that strengthens him with every drop of sake he consumes. As the group assessed the formidable being, Kashiwagi turned to his companion with a pressing question, asking Akai for the highest ability score among the guards. Akai, with a calm expression, estimated it to be around 100,000. The number was far from reassuring. Kashiwagi grimaced, realizing that such a score was nowhere near enough. He knew he had no choice but to intervene, but a deeper concern troubled him. He sensed there wasn't just one enemy. His senses scanned the area, confirming his suspicion. He couldn't see them, but he was certain. Somewhere nearby, another entity existed, one on the same level of power as the Oni. This realization forced him to consider the vulnerable members of his party. His gaze shifted to the car, where Haruka held Runa close. He understood the terrible dilemma. If he left this spot to fight the Oni, the other, hidden threat would almost certainly seize the child. Trapped by the tactical impossibility of the situation, his hand tightened into a fist. Frustration mounted within him as he cursed his own inexperience, recognizing he had too little practice fighting while simultaneously protecting someone. As he wrestled with his thoughts, a pair of shoes suddenly appeared in his line of sight. He looked up, sensing something was amiss. He looked up to see a familiar, confident face. It was the blonde-haired student, casually holding a skewer of grilled food. With a smirk, he addressed Kashiwagi directly, calling him kiddo. Caught completely off guard by the sudden and unexpected appearance, he could only utter a single, confused word. Who? As Kashiwagi and Akai stood before the massive Oni, a man with light-colored hair casually approached them, eating a skewer of yakitori. He looked at Kashiwagi and asked with his mouth full of something was wrong. Kashiwagi, caught off guard by the stranger's sudden appearance, could only ask who he was. Before the man could reply, Akai's eyes widened in disbelief. He recognized the red hair and identified the newcomer as Abel Leon. Even a monstrous Shuten Duji reacted with surprise. Abel Leon casually explained that he was grabbing some yakitori nearby when he heard the commotion and decided to investigate. Akai, still stunned, wondered aloud why someone of his renown was present. Kashiwagi, however, was unfamiliar with the name. He internally questioned if this man was famous, quickly deciding he wasn't interested in strangers anyway. Abel Leon surveyed the area, noting that the Special Countermeasures Unit had not yet arrived. Akai added that besides Shuten Duji, he could sense the presence of another S-rank monster. He sighed, concluding that he had no choice but to lend a hand. Akai's face lit up with relief, exclaiming that his presence was most reassuring. Turning to the Oni, Abel Leon smirked, declaring that picking a fight with him was a death wish. Shuten Duji roared with delight, stating this was exactly what he wanted, a chance to kill the Absolute. The monster bellowed that it wouldn't be a fight, but a slaughter, demanding Leon face him. Unfazed, Abel Leon agreed. He tossed his empty skewer aside, the small piece of wood cracking the pavement on impact. He considered the impending battle his post-meal workout. He stepped forward to face the towering demon, casually informing the beast that he would play with it for a bit. He stands before the monstrous Oni, Shuten Duji, his expression calm and confident despite the creature's overwhelming size and menacing grin. His eyes narrow, focusing with sharp intensity on his colossal opponent. Without hesitation, he lunges forward, closing the distance in an instant and throwing a powerful right hook aimed directly at the Oni's chest. The blow connects with a deafening crack, the point of impact glowing with immense energy as the Oni's muscular torso ripples. The sheer force of the punch sends the massive creature hurtling backward, its body a blur against the shattered air. It digs its feet into the ground, carving deep trenches as it violently skids to a halt. The Oni looks down at its chest, a wide, toothy grin spreading across its face. It remarks that taking a hit like that was not bad at all. It declares that this is a first, and with blinding speed, it closes the distance again, its massive, clawed hand clamping down on Abel's arm. With Abel's arm trapped, the Oni pulls back its other fist, preparing to unleash a devastating counterattack. The monster's fist smashes into Abel's face, the impact exploding with enough force to shatter the very space around them. He is sent hurtling backward, but the expected impact never comes. Instead, Shuten Duji's fist connects with an unseen force, shattering the air itself. The Oni roars in fury, promising that his opponent's ugly face is about to get even worse. But his fist is stopped cold, caught in Abel Leon's hand. With startling calm, Abel warns the beast not to touch him so casually. The force of the block sends a shockwave up Shuten Duji's arm, forcing him to recoil. He presses the advantage, pivoting with impossible speed to deliver a powerful kick to the Oni's side. The onlookers, Kashiwagi and his companions, can only watch in stunned silence. The impact kicks up a massive cloud of dust and debris, obscuring the battlefield and shaking the ground beneath the distant observers. As the dust settles, Abel stands with his shirt shredded, lamenting that he liked the outfit and declaring that Shuten Duji will pay for it. The Oni, seemingly impressed, acknowledges his foe's power, remarking that this must be what it means to be the Absolute. Watching from a distance, Kashiwagi is utterly bewildered. He questions what the deal is with this Leon character, admitting to himself that he never expected him to be so overwhelmingly strong. His gaze remains fixed on the two combatants. He notes that Shuten Duji is still standing, but realizes that under normal circumstances, any opponent would have been crushed by that blow. This realization galvanizes him. He turns to Akai with urgency, stating they must leave immediately. He understands now that Leon is holding back, restraining his true power because their presence makes them a liability. A bald man in a vest reported with alarm that the Absolute's attack had destroyed all of their cars. Beside him, Akai could only stammer his understanding of the dire situation. The entire group, now joined by Kashiwagi, stood together on the cracked pavement, surveying the aftermath of the battle. The bald man let out an appreciative whistle, remarking on the impressive nature of the Absolute's ability. Recovering his composure, Akai gestured towards an unseen vehicle, urging everyone to get on. Kashiwagi then approached a car where Takamia, Haruka, and Runa were waiting, telling the young ladies that it was time for them to leave as well. He paused, noticing their hesitation and the strained look on Haruka's face. He asked if something was wrong. Her voice trembled as she explained that her legs were frozen, completely unresponsive, while Runa looked up at her with concern. Without a second thought, he offered a quick apology before lifting both Haruka and Runa into his arms, carrying them from the vehicle in a single, swift motion. He rejoined the others on the broken road. Seeing them all gathered, Akai gave the command for everyone to hold on tight, announcing their immediate departure. As the group prepared to flee, Abel Leon stood alone, a solitary figure amidst the destruction with his back torn open. Kashiwagi glanced over his shoulder one last time. The warrior then turned his attention back to his opponent. Shuten Duji stood ready, but a disembodied voice from a shadowy form declared the situation troublesome, advising the Oni that they must prioritize their retreat. Abel Leon watched, a silent question forming on his face. He watched as the Oni, Shuten Duji, clicked his tongue in frustration. The creature grumbled that he had no choice, his objective having been to seize Takamia Runa. As the creature began to turn away, the shadow entity hovering behind him, he was stopped by a voice. Abel Leon called out, telling him not to walk away now that the party was just getting started. The Oni glanced back, surprised. A confident smirk spread across his face as he invoked an ability, his eyes glinting with anticipation. Leo? Lion Palace. The Oni flinched, startled by a sudden burst of energy and smoke that erupted from his opponent. From within the swirling energy, a piece of dark, ornate armor began to form. A massive, clawed gauntlet taking shape. The transformation completed, settling onto Abel Leon's arm. He flexed the powerful, clawed fingers, a wide grin on his face as he declared his readiness to begin. On a field of shattered earth, Abel Leon faces the imposing Oni monster, Shuten Duji. With a confident smirk, Abel announces that the real fun is about to begin. The nearby shadow entity warns him to know his place, but Abel is undeterred. His left arm is now encased in a black, clawed gauntlet, which he clenches while declaring, "Here I come." Infuriated by this display of defiance, Shuten Duji's face contorts with rage. He bellows for the human not to underestimate him, and lunges forward to attack. The Oni throws a massive punch, but Abel moves with blinding speed, ducking beneath the blow and closing the distance in an instant. His opponent's fist is already before his face, prompting a shocked realization from Shuten Duji. His foe is insanely fast. He dodges another strike, a swift backhand from the Oni. The shadow entity watches in disbelief, wondering how Abel could have possibly moved into what should have been a complete blind spot. In that moment, Abel reveals that both of his hands are now covered by the formidable black, clawed gauntlets. He drives his fist forward, landing a devastating blow directly on Shuten Duji's jaw with explosive force. The sheer impact sends the massive Oni stumbling backward, his bare foot digging into the ground as he struggles to stay upright. Clutching his chest where smoke now rises, Shuten Duji realizes with alarm that he can't feel his left arm. He understands that the last two hits were on a completely different level from anything he'd faced before. He demands to know what his opponent is talking about. Abel Leon stands calmly in the distance and confirms the rumor. He can indeed read their moves ahead of time. Beside the Oni, the small shadow creature reacts with shock. With a confident smirk, he begins to elaborate, stating that his ability, which he calls Leo, possesses multiple properties. He explains the first two. The first is foresight, which allows him to see an opponent's movements up to 3 seconds into the future. The second, he reveals while clenching his gauntlet fist, is escalation, which causes his physical condition and power to increase drastically as a battle drags on. He then compares this escalating power to the way Shuten Duji's strength is fueled by alcohol, prompting another jolt of surprise from the shadow creature. Finally, he introduces the third and final property of his ability, Lion's Fury. He admits, however, that this particular one is difficult to put into words. He declares that he won't be using it here, as it isn't needed to defeat them. Shuten Duji scoffs, questioning the arrogant claim. The reason for his restraint is a dire one. He claims that if he were to use it, the entire island nation of Japan would sink to the bottom of the ocean. Hearing this, Shuten Duji bursts into laughter, dismissing the threat as ridiculous bluffing. The shadow creature, however, is not so certain, considering the terrifying possibility that he might be telling the truth. It comes to a chilling realization about the nature of the beings known as the Absolute. They're a collection of monsters, just like him. As his power flares visibly, Abel Leon issues a final warning to his opponents. If they continue to dawdle, he will only grow stronger. His escalating power radiated outwards, an overwhelming pressure that crushed the very air. The shadow entity wavered, its simple form contorting as it felt the immense force. The Oni, Shuten, felt it as well, gritting his teeth as his muscles locked up. He found himself unable to move, pinned in place by sheer force of will. He strained, every fiber of his being focused on a single task, just staying on his feet. His toes dug into the ground, trembling with the effort. His struggle did not go unnoticed. Abel Leon appeared before him, a confident smirk on his face, and mocked the Oni's state, suggesting he hadn't had enough to drink. He declared that Shuten would never defeat him unless he drank enough to guarantee a hangover, his own power flaring visibly around him. With a shout, he unleashed an attack, Twin Fong. Two dark energy constructs, like massive jaws, slammed shut on the shadow entity. The resulting flash blinded Shuten, who recoiled, unable to see. Before the Oni could recover his sight, Abel was on him. He couldn't track his movements at all as a powerful blow connected, sending him hurtling backward through the air. The force of the impact carried Shuten across the bridge and into the distant tree line, where he crashed with explosive force. Abel stood calmly, observing the destruction. From the wreckage, the battered Oni rose, glaring at his opponent. He growled, calling Abel an overpowered freak. Abel simply smiled, offering a compliment on his toughness. He dismissed the entire encounter as a nice workout and leaped away into the sky. Below, the stunned Shuten and the reformed shadow entity could only watch him depart, shocked by his abrupt exit. His final blow struck true, the force of the impact causing the shadow entity to violently contort and begin to break apart. The entity's form then erupted in a blinding flash, its dark essence scattering into nothingness across the ravaged landscape. Watching from a distance, a shirtless young man with spiky blonde hair clicked his tongue in annoyance, realizing his targets had escaped using some kind of mist monster's ability. He turned and began to walk away from the scene of the battle. He mused that he could track them down if he wanted to, but felt no particular obligation to go that far. Later, Kashiwagi approached him, commenting that while he didn't know the reason, the blonde student had been hiding an outrageous fighting spirit. The blonde student replied that as long as that brat was around, they would likely figure things out on their own. His thoughts, however, seemed to drift elsewhere. He clenched his fist, a confident smile playing on his lips as he wondered aloud how a battle between them would ultimately play out. Kashiwagi, too, considered the possibility of a future confrontation. He supposed that he would eventually get a chance to cross fists with the powerful newcomer. But the future held a confrontation that neither of them could yet foresee. It was something Abel Leon had no way of knowing at the time. The day when the two of them would clash was not far off. The group arrives at their destination, the formidable Takamia family shelter, a large, secure-looking facility. Having reached safety, the bald man sighs in relief, glad they finally made it. Kashiwagi turns to Takamia Haruka, who is sitting nearby, and asks if she can get down on her own. She confirms that she can. He then helps the younger sister, Runa, who beams at him and offers a heartfelt thank you while clutching her stuffed rabbit. Kashiwagi dismisses the thanks, simply expressing his own relief that they all arrived safely as he helps her to the ground. Standing before the assembled group, Takamia Haruka formally expresses her gratitude, stating that they owe their survival to all of them. The butler, Ikai, stands beside her, observing the exchange. One of the men insists they wouldn't have made it so far if not for the intervention of the Absolute. The bald man agrees, admitting that, honestly, they barely did anything themselves. His gaze drifts towards the direction they came from. He realizes the sounds of the distant battle have completely stopped, prompting him to wonder if Leon actually managed to defeat the demon. As he stands lost in thought, Ikai gestures towards the entrance of the shelter. He invites everyone to come inside, announcing that he will take them to the secure zone. He notices that Kashiwagi hasn't moved with the others and turns back, asking if something is the matter. Kashiwagi remains silent for a moment, his expression thoughtful. Breaking his silence, he explains that he picked up a strange presence on their way to the shelter. He then asks Ikai if he would mind if he want to check it out. Ikai considers the request for a moment. He reasons that since they've made it this far, the young lady should be safe now. He grants permission, but cautions Kashiwagi to be careful. Kashiwagi stands perched on a rooftop, surveying the seemingly quiet streets below. A deep sense of unease settles over him. This all feels far too easy. He understands that it would be a complete disaster if their enemies managed to infiltrate the Takamiya facility. His brow furrows, a bead of sweat forming on his temple as he tries to dismiss the feeling, hoping that he is just being paranoid. His thoughts are cut short by a soft, pulsing glow in the distance. He whips his head around, trying to pinpoint the source of the strange phenomenon. Before he can make sense of it, a large, dark monolith standing in a nearby lot abruptly shatters into countless fragments. He stares in disbelief, wondering aloud what on earth it could be. His gaze sweeps across the city skyline, only to see that the event was not an isolated one. Other monoliths across the district are disintegrating in unison. A chilling realization washes over him as he processes the scale of the event. It's happening from all sides, completely surrounding him. In the wake of the monolith's destruction, faint lines of light begin to etch themselves across the sky, connecting unseen points above the city. The lines solidify, revealing their true form. A vast, semi-transparent wall that has materialized from nothing, boxing in the entire district. He stares up at the colossal structure, his mind struggling to comprehend the impossible sight. He questions if what he's seeing is some kind of barrier. His eyes then lock onto a specific point on the horizon, and his expression shifts to one of pure shock. He gasps, a horrified realization dawning on him as he identifies the center of the barrier. He raced across the rooftops, cursing his predicament. They had been caught, trapped by the sudden appearance of the barrier. Meanwhile, deep within a secure building, Ikai was giving a tour of the facility control room. He presented the advanced monitoring station to Takamia Haruka, her daughter Runa, and their security detail, proudly declaring it the most secure area in the entire facility. He elaborated on their safety, explaining that he had deployed defensive barriers around the perimeter to ensure their protection. One of the guards expressed his surprise, admitting he hadn't known the facility possessed such a capability. His confident explanation was cut short by the buzzing of his phone. He glanced down, puzzled to see Kashiwagi's name on the screen. Answering the call, he asked what Kashiwagi had found. From a rooftop overlooking the city, Kashiwagi urgently reported that a barrier had gone up around the shelter itself, trapping them all inside. The news was a shock. A barrier? Ikai repeated in disbelief, his security team listening with growing concern behind it. He demanded to know what on earth was going on. Kashiwagi's voice came through, firm and commanding, ordering Ikai to stay put and not leave the facility, as he was already heading back. Before Ikai could respond, a deafening siren blared through the control room. The bald guard leader shouted out, asking what the sound was. Ikai's expression turned grim as he explained it was the emergency siren, which triggers whenever a monster appears in the city. He immediately turned to the main console, announcing that he was putting the live feed on the screen. A single point of light appeared, resolving into an image. The feed flickered to life, revealing a shocking scene. The horned Oni monster, Shuten Duji, stood amidst wreckage, his face a mask of confusion. Beside him were two other figures, a cloaked, shadowy entity and a heavily damaged female android. He grins menacingly from the monitor. The guards watching are stunned, with one shouting in disbelief that the creature is still alive. Another questions if the Absolute was actually defeated. Shuten Duji sneers, realizing they have been played for fools. His allies, a cloaked shadow and a damaged android, appear beside him on the screen. The android addresses the observers directly, her voice likely cold and synthetic as she says, "You lie." Hearing her words, the men in the control room recoil. The bald guard leader wonders aloud if the barrier was part of their plan all along and nervously asks if the monster is coming for them. Kashiwagi attempts to calm him, stating they should be safe as long as they remain inside. But that safety is an illusion. Outside, chaos erupts as the trio walks through the streets, sending civilians scattering in terror. Shuten Duji lunges, grabbing a young man by the head and lifting him effortlessly. He glares forward, declaring that he knows they are watching. He snarls, his voice a low growl as he issues his ultimatum. He demands they listen closely, bring the brat out, and disable the defensive barriers, or else. The threat hangs in the air, punctuated by the image on the screen. He tightens his grip on the terrified hostage, whose body goes limp with fear. Shuten Duji roars his final warning. If they don't comply, he will kill every single one of them. The chilling promise sends a wave of dread through Ikai. He realizes with dawning horror that only the Takamia family and a few select servants know about this facility. The conclusion is inescapable. There must be a traitor among them. His panicked thoughts are interrupted by a small voice. Runa, clutching her stuffed rabbit, looks up with wide, fearful eyes. She whispers that it's because she's here. Because of her ability, everyone is going to suffer. Before she can finish, Haruka rushes to her side, pulling the crying child into a tight embrace. She fiercely reassures the little girl that she hasn't done anything wrong, that this is not her fault. Runa can only sob, "Big sister." He watches the two sisters, his expression a mixture of sorrow and frustration. A single tear traces a path down his cheek as he questions why they must suffer like this. Just because of who they are, his expression hardened, fist clenching at his side as the realization struck him. Runa's ability, it was special. Without a moment's hesitation, he broke into a sprint down the corridor. "Ah, Ikai!" Haruka cried out, watching him race away. Meanwhile, across the city, another figure was already on the move, leaping from one rooftop to the next with incredible speed. Kashiwagi pushed himself forward, his eyes fixed on the horizon. A single desperate thought propelled him. Please make it in time.